Consider the coconuts.
What?
The pods and the casts.
Ha! Did I do it right?
Yeah, I think that works. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. Thank you. Wow, good job by me.
Perfect. I was going to, there are 2 times they say it. Because I always used to mess up the line, of course. I would say, consider the coconut, consider its leaves. And then people would correct me.
I think this was my fault. I think I am the one who transposed the line in my head somehow. And then I would say it. And I think I planted it in your head. I think it's some weird.
Wait, but what is it really?
Okay, so the first time it's consider the coconut, the what? Consider its tree. And then the second time it's consider the coconuts, the trunks and the leaves. So we were mashing the second lines together. Consider its leaves. We took every part of what we were saying was correct.
And you do have to consider it.
We weren't wrong. You should consider its leaves.
It's that thing where I got a little disappointed to remember the real line because I thought it was funnier that he goes right to the leaves, like, because it seems like a sort of weird thing to be like, consider its leaves, man. Like, you know.
That's the thing. I think that's why we transposed it, because it was funnier to us.
But obviously it's great no matter what. And you do have to consider the coconut, obviously.
You know what? I mean, the consider the coconut, I feel like, has been a key bit on this show for so long, for the majority of its run, that when we decided to do Musker Clements, it didn't even register for me, oh, we're finally going to consider the coconut. I wasn't even thinking about how much this is the realization of a long-held promise to our listeners, that someday we would, in fact, consider the coconut long form on this podcast. And what is this podcast, Dan?
Is Blank Check. Wow, I'm saying the name.
With whom?
Griffin and David.
And what's it about?
Wait, I have to do the spiel?
Let's see if you can.
Okay. Wow. It is crazy that I am freezing up right now, not remembering what the spiel of our podcast is.
Oh, so suddenly it doesn't look so easy to be Griffin, does it?
No, it doesn't. I'm so okay. It's a podcast about filmographies.
Correct.
Directors who get a series of blank checks for crazy passion projects. See, I'm already messing up.
Go on, you're correct. Go on.
Oh, okay. And sometimes they clear and sometimes they bounce, baby.
Great. And this is a miniseries on the films of Musker Clements. You were not quite word perfect, but I'll accept it. I'll give you a 97.
Ron Clements and John Musker, another pair that I transpose the names of a lot of the time.
I was going to say, I'm sure you've noticed, I just don't even say their first names anymore in the intro because I'm convinced I'm going to Macquarie it up every single time. But it is the films of Musker and Clements. Ron Musker, John Clements?
Ron Clements, John Musker.
See, I can't do, I resent trying.
Yes.
I regret and resent myself. And I recuse myself from this podcast. It is a miniseries called The Pottle Murcast.
That's right. This is the final episode.
And today we're talking about their final film. They have now retired. From Disney, at least. Rumors abound that perhaps one of them is working independently on his own project outside of the studio system. But it sounds like a little thing, right? We were talking about that the other day.
He's apparently, let me triple check this, but yeah, it's I think it's John Musker is hand drawing a short film by himself. That seems like, it's like when your dad retires and then he like works on a car engine or something. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like just kind of like a fun retirement project. So anyway.
It feels like him doing what George Lucas has always promised to do.
Yeah, where he's like, oh yeah, I'll just make weird short movies about cars. Yeah, no one will. No, yeah, no one. Yeah.
Right. And maybe I won't even show them to people. Yeah.
Right. Well, maybe he is doing that.
But that's not what this is about, okay? We're talking Moana. We're considering The Coconut, their final film. Maybe their best?
Wow. You think it's their best film?
I was debating it while watching it. Because I feel like
it's pretty good.
Look, this is rarely a claim we get to make on this podcast, and rarely a claim we get even close to considering on this podcast. Right? We have covered very few complete filmographies.
Yeah, only a couple, right.
And by and large, the last film is not their best.
By and large, as a rule, filmmakers do not make their best movies at the end of their career. Yeah.
Right, in general, even outside of this podcast, yes. And if this is not their best film, it is at least arguable. It's at least in the conversation.
Sure, okay.
Right?
they made The Little Mermaid and Aladdin, but yes, I know what you're saying. Yes.
I just don't think it's an absurd thing for me to suggest.
I don't either. I like
As
it.
opposed to arguing that Ricky and the Flash is better than Silence of the Lambs. This is at least a conversation you could have. Our guest is being so respectful, so polite, but she doesn't understand that on this show, chaos reigns.
I know, but I'm letting you do your thing. I'm letting you do your thing until I can erupt.
Okay, all right, well, that's fair enough. Okay.
Like Tika, haha.
From the Atlantic, Lenika Cruz, first time on the show.
My coworker, my longtime colleague.
Your coworker, but I'm also realizing for the intro, I should have asked what your official title is within the BTS Army these days. Do you have a rank?
I am just one of many
Okay.
millions.
Okay.
Yes. A mere foot soldier.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited. And when David asked me at the end of last year to be on this, I was like, oh, finally, I have something to look forward to in 2021. Like, I had nothing. I was like, I just need something to pull me over the edge of this year and into the next one. So here we are.
I hear that loud and clear. I feel like so much of things to look forward to for me now are just like, oh, I'm going to withhold. I'm going to not watch Moana for 4 months so that when I watch it, when it's time for the episode, it will feel really good.
It'll hit different.
Did you watch it tonight?
I did, yeah. But this is a movie I throw on a lot. Like, this is, David, you were talking about how you'll just kind of throw on Princess and the Frog as a balm. It's one you'll like flip on a lot. This is a movie where even if I'm just like tired, I'm like, let me watch just like 20 minutes of Moana until I fall asleep. Let me just watch these sequences. Let me watch the whole thing.
Right. I watch a lot of the songs. I do that. I haven't watched the movie in total in a couple years.
I do both. I jump around. I watch specific scenes. I'll watch just the beginning. I'll watch the whole thing. I listen to the soundtrack. It's a movie I find very relaxing and soothing.
House of Pain over here.
I'll jump around.
I feel like I trust your claim then that it's maybe the best of their filmography if you've seen it so many times.
I don't think it's a movie. I don't think it's a perfect film. There are minor issues I have with it, but I also think it's like, I mean, I guess jumping into the deep end here, but I got a DM. I've been poorly managing the social media channels for Blank Check while we.
You've been doing all right. I'm enjoying it.
I resent every time I have to log on to any form of social media. It stresses me out. I'm trying to push away from all of it. And then to whoever ultimately we hire to do the job will be much better at it than I am. But someone DM'd us and said, like, so let me get this straight. Griffin likes Tenet because the rules don't make any sense and doesn't like Wonder Woman 1984 because the rules don't make any sense. And I wanted to just respond, yes, correct.
Oh, okay. Wait, this is just okay.
Right, some listener, right, who we've never interacted with. I don't believe I've ever interacted with before online. Sent that DM, and I didn't respond. But in my head, I was like, yes, I do defend that because I think part of at least what we try to do on this show, and I certainly think I fail sometimes. I get caught in traps of shit. But like, you want to judge a movie by what it's trying to be, right? Movies exist, they can be judged on different criteria based on the relative terms of what type of film they're trying to be and how well they work in that regard. There's no overall rules of all good movies need to be this.
This is a central tenet of film criticism, in my opinion. You don't want to be like, I have an objective formula that I can plug any movie into, and if it fails, then like my tests, then that's silly.
Yeah, it's right. And sometimes I get, I fall prey to like, oh man, I'm really into this idea of what the movie could be instead. But I feel like very often when I throw out alternative ideas, they were like, this feels like a cleaner execution of what they're trying to do. That having been said, I realized after we recorded our Flight episode, every complaint I made about Flight is just that it's not Sully.
Right. Well,
truly every complaint was just, this isn't Sully, which is not fair because there's only one movie in history that's Sully. But this is a film for me where I like everything it's trying to do so goddamn much that its failings for me, which are very slight, I am more willing to forgive because I think they come so close to executing something that feels a lot more narratively ambitious than most films of its ilk.
Lenika, I know you like this movie a lot because you used to tweet about it a lot.
Did I?
Or maybe you still do. Well, I remember you tweeting about it, or maybe you were talking to me. I cannot remember why.
I feel like I tweeted about it a lot when it came out because I watched it a bunch and it was just like, I don't know, it had a lot of personal meaning for me that year and just seeing like, I don't know, Polynesian culture and just all of that stuff. And so I worried that I was blinded, but like literally the first time I saw the movie, I was like crying for the first 10 to 15 minutes and I was like, I don't even know what happened. Like there are two songs that are happening already. So I needed to go back. But rewatching it, like all the emotional beats that hit so hard the first time I watched it had the same power.
Yeah.
Like every time I'm just like the tears are being squeezed from my eyes.
This movie just hits for me. Like I just think the highs of it are so goddamn high, and when it's really trucking, it's like it feels just like ecstatic, you know, in its
It's like
emotions and
transcendent,
its
yeah.
comedy. It does, yeah. It has true transcendent moments. What were you about to say, David?
Well, I feel like we've talked about this on the show. And we have, as fans have noted, we've talked about this month in movies a weird amount.
Yeah.
Not for any intentional reason, but we've talked about movies that came out in November 2016.
Mhm.
Allied, Doctor Strange, I think. What was another one? Griffin, the
Yes.
Verhoeven movie.
Was Billy Lynn 16 or was that 17?
Wasn't Billy Lynn a summer movie? No, you're right. No, Billy Lynn. That's another one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Billy Lynn, November 18th, 2016 as
Yeah,
well.
this month was just, and as you've talked about many times, like it's hard to really accurately judge your or stick with your first blush opinions of movies you saw in November 2016 right after the election.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's, this is what we've talked about. This is a movie I saw a day or two after the 2016 election. And I remember just not being in the mood for a Disney movie, which is rude of me, I think, actually. I don't know why I was being such a big baby.
I know why.
I don't think I ever put my thoughts down on paper about it, but I remember my takeaway being like, oh, it's good. It peaks early I think it's the best two songs are at the start, and then but my take being like, yeah, it's good. I liked it,
Yeah, you were like, it's nice, it's cute, it's not great, but it's good.
And then I remember a year or two later, a lot of my friends who have kids really like this movie.
Yeah.
I think because it is free of Disney princess fraught things that they worry about. And, new parents, I guess, are like, oh, what should I be showing my kid first? So maybe I think that's a part of it. But also it's just a very enchanting and pretty movie that their kids really respond to. So I just remember talking to someone who's like, what's really good is Moana. Moana is great.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, Moana. Yeah, Moana was good. And I remember, and then I went back to it and I was like, this is way better than I remember. This is way.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first time that I considered that Ron Clements and John Musker had made it, more serious, right? Where I was like, oh, well, these guys kind of are the master of the modern Disney musical. So maybe that's part of what I'm liking about it. But no, anyway, that's just, it's a boring arc. But and then I watched it tonight and I was just sobbing, just a mess.
Yeah, I do think that's a thing too of just friends who have become parents who have kids. This movie kind of with that age group is almost on equal footing with Frozen. Even if Frozen feels like more of a cultural juggernaut, you talk to young parents with young kids and they're like, it's just Moana and Frozen. Those are the two. And they're the two that are in constant rotation. They're the two where the songs are being sung constantly. And those parents are also like, Moana's a lot better than Frozen. From the people who have had to watch this movie 40 times.
That was exactly it. They were like, look, I'm in the trenches right now. My kids want to watch 5 movies total. And Moana is the one that holds up the best. That's the one that is the most rewarding on repeat viewing.
And in a lot of ways feels the most sophisticated and nuanced for me in how it avoids a lot of those trappings that you're talking about and still creates a story that is able to hit the same sort of dramatic highs, build to the same comedy, the same tension, the same emotion, without relying on a lot of those old tricks. And a part of it is, for me, it's the thing I really like about this movie above all else. And David, you were talking about this in the Princess and the Frog episode, how they've been working so hard to try to redefine the Disney princess, right?
Right.
And make these films a romantic and make the characters more sort of empowered, strong-headed, and what have you. to sort of redefine the young,
to make the reward not marriage, is sort of the big thing. Yeah.
But also you look at like reviews of when Aladdin came out and when Beauty and the Beast came out, and they're like, finally, like a strong-minded, independent female character at one of these Disney movies. She's not wishy-washy. She's not like Cinderella, And then you watch those films and they feel very retrograde in a lot of ways. And, there's this constant thing we've talked about where Disney is constantly trying to be like, no, we're woke. Like, we're constantly trying to be better than we were the last movie. And part of that is just because these movies hold so much cultural weight. They do, like, shape young minds that I think they're constantly being judged more and more harshly as to what those stereotypes and archetypes are that they're perpetuating. This one, for me, is, like, such an interesting arc because it really is just about... she's right the whole movie, right? Like, she doesn't have a giant character flaw. There's not a lesson she needs to learn. The conflict of this movie is her understanding how to be a person. It's not ideologically she has the wrong approach. It's not that she has a belief that is wrongly held that she needs to be disabused of. It is that, like, she understands the weight of the fact that she's going to have to be a leader someday, which is something the princess movies never really take into account, right?
Right.
Anything less than that sort of being a ceremonial title that grants them a bunch of nice dresses and shit. That she's like, there are a people that I am responsible for taking care of. And she views, I think, in the way a lot of us do. Ben was just talking about this right before we recorded. But you get to a certain age and you start to reckon with your parents and you're like, what did they do wrong and what did they do right? And how do I want to be better than them? Right. And she's starting to become conscious of the fact that someday this is going to be hers. It's not her dad's, and she has to make the decisions. He disagrees, and she's like, I'm going to break the rules because I think this is right. It's not for selfish reasons. I think this needs to be done. And the movie is her dealing with how difficult it is to be an adult. It's just her, like, trial and error, figuring out how to do the things she wants to do and how to shoulder that responsibility. That's a pretty heavy thing to make a children's film about.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, Griffin, I feel like this has come up on the podcast before. You grew up in New York City.
I did. Yes, I grew up in New York City. Yes, yeah. So I grew up on an island. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a lot of experience with this movie and what we're talking about.
I got island time running through my blood at all times. Yeah, I get this movie. It speaks to me. It calls me. Yeah.
But it made me think of, like, also sort of like leaving behind your hometown and striking out on your own to forge your own self, right?
And see, this is why you like Kiki's Delivery Service too, Ben. You like
Yes.
any movie about, like, trying to, get out, right, and go and make it somewhere, and, like, it's hard and all that.
This is
Yep.
like a true coming of age movie, but wrapped up in an adventure film. And I was watching it and I was like, what other movies have a lead character arc like this? And it really kind of is like Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker doesn't have character flaws.
Sure. Sure. Yes. Luke doesn't. It's true. Yeah.
It's the flip. His dad is also a ruler, but he's the bad ruler, right? But it's this idea of, like, who do I want to be in relation to who my parents are? What's out there for me? I want to leave the space I'm in. I want to learn more about the world.
He ends up on an island, ironically.
He does. And he fundamentally, I want to do good. Their moral compass is intact the entire time.
Literally from the time she's a baby, like, the first thing she does is protect a turtle. Like that. And then right after that, that's when the ocean's like, yes, come here. You are the chosen one.
You're right. Because, like, when I'm watching this movie, the first scene is there's a cute little chubby toddler who's, like, walking around on the beach. I'm like, this is so cute. But, like, there is actual thematic meaning threaded into this, like, that, right, the ocean is like, yes, here's someone worthy.
Right. She's choosing between this shiny shell in the water that's attracting her. It's the appeal that the ocean has. And then the people back at home that she's trying to look out for. And, like, those two things kind of come together. But I feel like the first maybe like 15, 20 minutes of this movie before she heads out from Motunui is, like, it's so dense, which is why when I rewatched it tonight, I had issues when I first watched this, like, I felt like the pacing of the first 15, 20 minutes was just so, there was just so much happening. And I realized, like, as I was watching it slowly, I realized in the first sequence where, not We Know the Way, where you are.
What we like to call Consider the Coconut. Yes.
Yeah. Consider the coconut. I didn't realize that her, the little Moana character keeps on like making little sailboats, and like I didn't see that because there was so much else going on with the villagers, and just like I tried to slow down the first chunk of that movie, but like they get everything in there. Like you don't need to pay attention to all those little details to know she wants to go into the ocean, but like it sets up all these conflicts with her. Like even within that song, she's growing up. She's gone from toddler to teenager. She's being told like you're going to be ruling this island. You're going to be responsible for these people's lives. And even within that song, she's so ambivalent. You see her at one point seeing her grandmother like by the beach, and she runs to her at first, and then the second time she sees her grandmother, she turns away from her and goes to where the people are. So it's like she goes through the coming of age like cycle in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and then she has another one.
She's helping the dumb chicken. What's the dumb chicken's name?
Hey.
Right, who we stand. But right, yeah, but yes, it's like she is constantly pulled to the ocean. They're always pulling her back. But also we're seeing the whole ecology of the island. Like we're seeing them farm, and we're seeing them make things, and we're seeing like how everything works, and like it's that classic early Disney song of like the work song. They love to kick things off with a good work song that kind of like establishes a status quo that then can be broken. But it's funny then, it's impressive to mix that in with like all this little detail about Moana.
Yeah, and there's like a thing, I think there's the prologue in Tangled where you see her as a little girl, and they sold so much fucking merchandise of toddler Rapunzel that I think they've said as much, that it was like a decree, like every one of these movies needs to open with a prologue where the main character is a toddler. They double merchandise sales if they do that.
Frozen does that, right? Moana does that. Wait, there's another of course Finding Dory. Remember when
Yes.
Dory is a little fish?
We stand. But yes, as you said, it's those three, but it's the three modern princess movies have all done that. And even, Tiana does that. Princess and the Frog does that.
Tiana is a little baby. Yep. Talking to her dad. I still feel like I'm forgetting an obvious one. Well, Zootopia, the little rabbit is a little kid.
She's a little bunny. Yeah.
And then she's like, I want to be a cop. I wonder how Zootopia would go right now. I haven't watched Zootopia in a few years.
I rewatched it like maybe 6 months ago at the time when it felt like it would be the most problematic, because I was just like, I'm curious how this holds up. And it's one of those things where when it starts, you're just like, did we really all fall for this? And by the end of the movie, you're like, fuck, it works.
It's right. Well, that's the Disney thing. I mean, obviously.
It so works on just a basic story level, even if the semiotics of it are a little bit dodgy.
Right. Sorry, but back to Moana. Back to the little Moana.
But yes, to Lenika's point, it's just like the prologue thing is just like at this point a corporate mandate, right? That's like part of your budget. You're not going to get the green light unless you figure out how to do an opening number with the toddlers so that we can sell those dolls and shit. And the fact that it actually establishes so much, not just in the background, but as you said, Lenika, about the characterization and like the whole thing of being drawn to the water, it feels like, I even think before seeing this movie, I expected it was going to be like a Billy Elliot thing of like, I want to be a sailor. And the dad's like, no, you need to be a princess. And she runs away in like rebellion.
Right.
And it's like, no, she takes to the water because that's the thing she thinks needs to be done to help the people of the island. But also there's this odd nature nurture thing because they talk about how the people of Matanua used to be adventurers, used to be sailors. They've repressed that within themselves. And there's something innately just drawing them. Like they're going against the very temperament of their island and their culture by shutting off this part of themselves.
And also just happy that that neither of her parents die. Because I do feel like there's so many Disney movies propelled by parent peril.
But grandma.
Just Grandma Peril, yeah.
But it's not really peril. She's not in peril. She's just old and,
Yeah, right.
It's a little more serene what's happening with the grandma, but it's true. There is some grandma peril. You're right.
She stays there with her, throughout the whole movie, yeah.
Right, there's that thing. There's the fact that the grandmother kind of feels like she's letting go of her own volition to a certain degree, and that the grandmother uses her death strategically to give Moana the chance to escape.
Sure.
She's like, I got
Yes.
you. I'm just going to die.
Right. It's not a formative trauma moment. It's like, hold on, I'm just going to die quickly. You sneak out the back.
I also think, though, that we should say, like, as much as she's, concerned with her people, her grandma represents like independence and going after things that are even bigger than the island, like, I don't know. The grandma character, that moment, that's when I really start to bawl.
Oh, yeah. But that gets to like, I think one of the reasons this movie is so potent with kids, because it is kind of a different story than these films usually tell, which is like, you're a kid, you go like, why are all these adults telling me what to do? I understand. I could do this on my own. Everyone should just let me do what I want to do. And then she goes out and does it, and she isn't proven wrong, but she finds out it's very difficult. It takes a lot of work. And there's something like for a kid, I think it's like a good struggle to watch someone just have to really deal with how do you actually get things done?
You learn by doing, and sometimes you end up on the right island.
Sometimes you bounce, baby,
So some context about this movie. Clements and Musker, after making The Princess and the Frog in 2009, wanted to, as I believe we talked about last week, make an adaptation of Terry Pratchett's novel Mort, which is about a boy who works for death.
Mhm.
It's a great book. It's a Discworld book. They could not get the rights. It's too bad. I would love to see it. I love that book, and it would be super cool. So instead, they're deterred. So they're like, okay, we need to think of original ideas. Like we can't get tied into a rights battle or whatever, right? So the thing that they pitched to John Lasseter, lots of hugging Lasseter, the head of Disney at that point, is a movie about Maui specifically. That I think they were the most interested in the demigod, whatever they had like read up on the mythic figure Maui. That was their original way into the movie.
Was it Clements? I mean, he got into Polynesian mythology, and it sort of sounds like they wanted to do something like Hercules, but with Maui. Do a more straight sort of retelling of the myths.
Yes. And then they learned I'm reading this off the internet, but they learned in their research that the people of Polynesia stopped making long distance voyages about 3,000 years ago. I don't know specifically what they were learning here, but right? Like, I guess they were like, why was there a transition from like seafaring people to more island-based people? Does that make sense? Because that seems to be the narrative thrust that they have come upon, is like this seafaring people who have stowed their boats away, right? Like that's the big reveal at the end of the first act of Moana is, they have these boats, and that's the sort of part of her that she's long sort of wondered, like, why do I want to explore when my dad's always telling me to stay home?
Well, that's the other thing, is they said they just came to the idea that it should be about Maui and the daughter of a chief, which I have to imagine is Disney going, you have to put a princess in this.
But the other thing I should mention is that Taika Waititi wrote the original screenplay for the film.
Mhm.
And then dropped out because he had a kid and he was making What We Do in the Shadows. And he says he has nothing to do with the movie as is. That it was a family movie. It was like about a girl.
Yeah, they like rewrote it. Yeah,
Right. It was like a girl with 6 brothers, and I think it was going to be more family oriented. I don't know.
He has some like special thanks or additional story material credit, but this is also a movie where there's only one credited screenwriter, but like 7 story by credits. It feels like it just went through a bunch of different drafts and different takes and different angles and different writers.
Jared Bush. That's the final credit.
Right, who's now just sort of like a Disney
He's one of their
in-house
guys.
guy. Right, he had like 5 sitcom credits before this, and pretty like Baby Bob, the sitcom that was about the E-Trade baby. It was like shit like that, and then he did like this. He I think Big Hero 6 and Zootopia. Like, he's just a Disney Story Trust guy now.
Yes, he is. Yes. Anyway, so that's all I really know. I mean, the only thing I'm interested by that I don't know much about is and Lenika, like, we've been, a lot of these movies that Clements and Musker made, and we've been talking about this the entire time, like Aladdin, Princess and the Frog, and then there's other Disney movies. Like, there's always the anecdote that they like went to the place that the movie is set in. Like we spent 2 weeks in China for Mulan.
It's always 2 weeks. Trust us, we did our work.
So apparently they went all, they went to Fiji, they went to Samoa, they went to Tahiti. I don't know much about their research trips or whatever. It does seem a little more in depth than the usual Disney vacation.
It seems like they put more. Yeah, it seems like they took this one more seriously. Like, I know that they created, I think they called it like the Oceanic Trust, and they had anthropologists and linguists.
Right, the Oceanic Story Trust. That's right.
Yes. And just, I think had a lot of notes from locals and historians who knew what they were talking about and like rewrote whole chunks. Maui was supposed to be bald and short or something. Like, I know people complained about how he was designed in the end, but just little things like that that most audiences wouldn't notice, that they've for some reason wanted, that they wanted fidelity for.
Were the complaints about his final design that he sort of he resembles Dwayne Johnson, that he's sort of like gigantically big? Because I do see like most of the
it's the chunkiness, right?
Right. Most of the art of Maui, he's more of just a regular man. Like, yeah.
Right. I think it's that he's like a stereotype and was, designed to just be like very heavy.
Right. I mean, I feel like that's partly the Dwayne Johnson thing. That's sort of, sad reality of modern animation where like they celebrityify things a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like the genie doesn't look like Robin Williams, right? But like, right, they like to slip in a few kind of like, look, you get it? Like, it's The Rock. Like, you love The Rock, right? Here he is.
But
right?
also, like, The Rock is ripped and Maui is a little more built like a brick wall,
Yes, that's true. Yes, it's not like he exactly looks like The Rock at all.
Yeah.
The eyebrow is the thing that actually is the most egregious.
The face is like, I mean, they're clearly mimicking his expressions.
Like, maybe they just didn't want a Maui who was super ripped with like the exact physique of The Rock half naked for most of this movie or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's also, I mean, they might have been trying actually to avoid making him look exactly like The Rock.
Maybe they're just making more room for tattoos.
That's also
sure.
true.
Well, right.
Oh,
they do have this very fun idea that the tattoos are like visual
like
story.
His sidekick.
Yeah. And so, yes, he's a big canvas. That makes some sense. I do remember I vaguely remember, the conversation about this when the movie came out. Because he looks like a rugby player. I mean,
There was conversation about everything, which is unavoidable with these movies. And I think they always try to do this thing where it's like, the movie is always announced as, we're finally going to make a movie about this culture. But it's not really about that culture. We made up a fake country, a fake city, a fake island. So we're sort of taking elements from mythology and we took all these research trips, but also it's fictional, so don't get angry at us.
We did go for 2 weeks about, though.
It looks like this new movie they have, Riot and the Last Dragon, which like I hope is good. There's lots to be excited. But that's another one that's set in like a mystical...
It's like Southeast Asia. Yeah.
Without anyone actually identifying any place geographically. And like, I get that. Look, whatever. Like, that's fine. Like, I mean, I hope that they tell an exciting and interesting story. But yes, sometimes you wonder, like, are they just trying to cover their ass in this kind of a half-ass ambiguous way?
Well, I think it's also the issue of like, to some degree, they bring this upon themselves because when these movies are announced, that's always the first thing they talk about. Like, they always go like, we got so interested in the history of this culture. We wanted to make a movie about it. We were so respectful. We did so much research. And that's always like the first step they take out, and same with Coco. I mean, it's just like across Disney at large, I feel like they always start the messaging with that because they're such a public relations company. But then they make the expectations so hard on themselves. I'm not saying they deserve more leeway, but it's just like to a certain degree, the knives are out by the time a first trailer came out. And that's like we talked about. I mean, Princess and the Frog was like the most sort of stepping on rakes of any of these movies in its launch. This one I feel like was genuinely largely positive, but of course there was like a lot of, pushback on different elements.
I do feel like the reaction was broadly positive to this film, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the specific.
Yeah, it was all the little things, and like the other thing was like the Maui costume with the tattoos, and like That was the most that I can remember. Like I don't think that there was anything very serious. Like they, with the casting, they went to such great lengths, like you were saying, Griffin, just to cast mostly like people of Polynesian descent, or and just making it as faithful in that way, or at least signaling that they were, that they cared about like honoring this culture, these cultures, plural. But yeah.
And even the fact, I mean, even if the final product doesn't really bear his thumbprints at all, the mere fact that they started by going to Taika Waititi signals a kind of like, maybe we shouldn't just guess here, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to the shirt because that's the worst merchandise spotlight we'll ever do in the history of this show. I feel like the coconut guys, what are they called? The Kamatoa?
Kakamora.
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 I feel like there was some like unease with that, but
Right, because they're like quote unquote like pygmies, right? But
yes.
the thing is, they are also coconut pirates, which is great. Like it's such a funny animation concept, like and like the minute you see them, you're delighted by. Like I don't think, but yes, I remember, right.
I read up on a bunch of articles and I was trying to find like the most critical ones from the time the film came out, just to try to get the perspective as a stupid white person that I don't innately have. And I feel like a lot of the sentiment was like, if you want to do funny little coconut guys, then come up with a new name. But when you're attaching the funny visual of little coconut minions to a name that has a sort of cultural history and one that's a little bit delicate to begin with, then it gets messy.
Oh, does the name Kakamora have
yes
a history to it? Okay, I thought they just made that up.
That's the thing. No, I think Kakamora is specifically tied to a certain type of pygmy legend.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find it because the only problem is you Google Kakamora, you just see Moana, the cute little guy. It may just be the name of a tribe. I'm not sure if it's specifically attached to like anything, but like they may have used a real word. Because it sounds like coconut, right? Like later. I mean, anyway. Right. I do remember the Kakamora coming under some, but yes, by the standards of some of these Disney projects that I would say often feel like they're just kind of blundering for it. And by the standards of this miniseries that we've done, when you think about Aladdin with its like all white cast and its, myriad, just completely like blithe ignorance, right, like, to the offensiveness of its, how it's portraying people and, how it's singing about them, like to this, and to think that they were made by the same person in my lifetime is kind of crazy. Just the arc of that.
Yeah. I mean, this movie, I was like looking at IMDb, it has like less than 10 speaking roles. It's one of those things you don't really realize until you step out of just like, this movie has a very contained cast and half the characters don't talk.
I think that's why I was initially underwhelmed because, right, once she leaves, there's really just her and Maui, and then you meet the crab, Tamatoa, but that's it. The villain obviously doesn't speak, like quote unquote villain, like barely a villain, obviously. And the chicken doesn't speak, except he clucks, and he is voiced by Alan Tudyk, of course.
Right, and the crab and the chicken are the only two white voice actors in the whole movie.
That's true. And that's it. And like, I think that may have been one, like probably unfairly, one reason I was sort of like, yeah, well, it kind of tapers off because then she's just, on a voyage. But the solitude is interesting, in retrospect. Like that's sort of a curveball for a movie like this.
On the subject of curveballs, why don't you have a ball this year by losing some curves? Does that work at all? Look, I'm trying to transition to a little ad spot for our friends at Noom, okay? And it was sweaty. It was sweaty, but sometimes sweat is good. It's a sign that perhaps you're working out. You're getting in shape, you're doing some exercise. Look, this is not a healthy transition, but getting healthy, it's it's hard. I mean, think about everything you've ever learned about getting healthy. There's a lot of contradictory information out there and a lot of sweaty transitions, and it's hard to separate good advice from bad. Plus, every body is unique. People have different objectives in terms of what they're looking for. Do you just want to get in better shape? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to build muscle? Are you trying to eat better? Are you trying to learn healthier habits? This is why Noom uses a different approach. Tapping my brain. I don't know if you can hear this. I'm holding it close to the mic, but I'm tapping my brain psychology. Okay? Because we've all gotten questionable health tips, right? People say, eat this, lick that, touch this. People tell me this stuff, and to be honest, I'm not sure if it's actually good advice. Noom knows that changing your health is not about rules. Noom is like Warren Beatty. They know that the rules don't apply. It's about changing your mindset. Enter psychology. Sounds like you're like, enter psychology. It feels like you're announcing the next Mortal Kombat combatant. Why Noom? Because if you want to get healthy and stay healthy, you need to know more about how you make decisions. Noom gives you the knowledge, tools, and confidence to make strategic choices that turn into long-term habits. And those long-term habits, yeah, they turn into a healthier, happier you. That's the twist, okay? It's based in science, built by psychologists. Noom doesn't give you the rules. It teaches you how to think so you can accomplish your personal health goals, stick with them long-term, and get healthy for good, okay? So, for example, here are some specific goals that you could achieve with Noom. Trying to have more energy. Enjoying exercise again. Not just about exercise, about how to enjoy it. You don't want to exercise, you want to exercise. Fitting better in clothes. What about, feeling good about your life choices, having an improved sense of self-worth, less stress. I can't relate to that one. I mean, I'm a zero stress person. What about just feeling more confident and comfortable in a crowd or social situation? That one's topical. I think a lot of us are feeling stressed about having to go back into the real world again, right? Leave the matrix and go back into the real world post-pandemic. You might want to start prepping yourself for that now. It's about knowledge. It's about ease. It's about empathy, coaching, flexibility. 10 minutes a day. It's a very forgiving, empathetic program. And you get a personalized coach who helps you understand yourself and your goals in a very flexible way. You don't have to commit to any rigorous plan, okay? And Noom's cognitive behavioral approach means you're not just improving your health, you're gaining the knowledge and the habits. You need to stay healthy. I'm tapping my head around. Okay, so everyone is busy. That's why Noom doesn't demand much of your time. They only ask for 10 minutes a day. And over 80% of Noomers finish the program. And over 60% have stuck with their goals for at least 1 year. There is a science to getting healthier, and it's called Noom. So what you got to do to sign up for your trial today is go to Noom.com/check. That's NOOM.com/check to sign up for your trial today. Are you ready to live? Are you ready to learn how to live healthier? Then sign up for Noom today at NOOM.com/check. And now I was so belabored in transitioning to this ad read, I'm not even going to try to transition back to the main show. Lenika, I'm curious because you were talking about seeing this for the first time and being overcome with the emotions from the get-go. What is sort of, I mean, you are Polynesian.
So I am like Pacific Islander. Yeah, like, from Guam. Like I spent time in Hawaii. Like I have family who are Samoan, and just when I saw, I mean, so much of this, like I realized that even though I'm not Polynesian, so like when I first heard the first song coming over the the Disney, and then like that imagery was like immediately started triggering tears, because I was like, this sounds like Chamorro. It sounds like a language that I'm familiar with growing up, and I'm hearing it in a Disney movies that I just took for granted that I wouldn't see characters who looked like me or whatever in the very just like simple way. But yeah, when I saw, just I was floored. Just seeing the animation and the way that the characters looked, and seeing they just looked like a lot of my family members. So just on that level, I was like not prepared, I guess. And it felt like the place looked real. It looked like, you know, a place I've spent time in growing up, and so in that way, as someone who tends to be skeptical about or cynical about representation stuff, it just silenced all of that in my mind for the whole movie, pretty much. And my family members too were so excited seeing just when I saw Moana, baby Moana, I thought of my little cousin who was about like Moana's age at the time and looked so much like her. And then I saw the grandma, and she looked so much like my step grandma, and who had died that year. And so it was just like she looked kind of like her. She kind of talked like her. She kind of sang like her, danced like her. And so yeah, like it's hard for me to separate the first time I saw Moana from like all of those that just hodgepodge of feelings.
Had you grown up like a Disney fan, or what, you know, like?
Yeah, the movie I ever remember seeing was Aladdin, and I watched Aladdin every single day until I got another VHS, which was Pinocchio, then watched Pinocchio every single day until we got I remember we had an order of like VHSs, and Aladdin was the first one, so it was funny that you mentioned it earlier, like
same directors.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And Little Mermaid, obviously, like just all these Disney movies. But I was more of an early Disney movie person. So, you know, when you're growing up and you want to dress up as Disney characters, like the closest that I could dress up was like Pocahontas, which is problematic. And, you know, just like it was Pocahontas and Mulan was like, oh, these are the closest things to like, people are like, what are you dressed up as? It's like, oh, I'm Mulan. Can't you tell? Because I'm like Asian. or, you know, Pocahontas because I'm brown. Like, you know, that kind of stuff. And so it was just like really cool. God, how old was I when Moana came out? You know, I was my late 20s, and I was like, my little cousins can dress up as a character who actually looked like them. Was just like, so emotional.
It's the most obvious shit in the world, but it is just so insane how much these movies are just like the first thing so many kids in this country and around the world are exposed to, like in terms of a movie, like not in terms of things they see.
But that's also like understandably why, you know, cultural critics take these movies to task, because they do actually change brains, these movies, you know? It's not like arguing over whether or not the is going to cause violence. It's you know, it's really like these movies do imprint on kids at very early ages and give them ideas of who they are in the world.
It's 2021, Griffin. Can we retire the Joker bit? Can we unretire the Joker bit or whatever? Can the Joker return?
You want to retire the being retired?
Yeah, can we just talk about the Joker again? Surely he won't come back and cause...
It's so dangerous, David. It's so dangerous.
Lenika, we bleep the Joker's name, and if we're not retiring the bit, I'm so sorry,
Listen,
Ben.
It's a post
Okay.
world, and I think we're okay. You know what? We'll bleep that. That's what we'll bleep.
We'll bleep that name, right?
Well, fine. We'll bleep him. I'm so worried because he is so twisted, this guy, and the things that make other people cry, they make him laugh.
I know, it's terrible, but like, I just want to go into...
Do you know what he calls coronavirus?
What does he
the
call
number
it?
one comedy in America.
Joker, cut it out.
I know, I don't like it. That's why I think he should be banned. Ricky T. He doesn't have boundaries.
Yeah, he doesn't have any boundaries. Sometimes he misses.
Lenika, the thing you were saying about the Pocahontas Halloween costume, it reminded me when Pocahontas came out, for whatever reason, all the girls in my grade at school liked Pocahontas' friend more than Pocahontas. There's a character who's at the very beginning who's like, why aren't you marrying Cocoam? And she looks vaguely like Pocahontas, but her dress is a little different and she's got bangs.
I don't even remember this character.
Her name is Nakoma.
Nakoma.
Wait, so they liked her better, so they wanted to dress up as her instead?
So several
She
girls
has
at my
bangs?
school. That's why I said she has bangs and her dress is a little different, right? Her dress is like a two-piece. Is that what it is, maybe?
Yeah, she has a two-piece. Yes, yeah.
Oh, her. I remember her.
I think the bangs were a big part of it. She really, I think, just has like the one scene at the beginning talking about Cocoam. but several girls in my grade, I'm sure it was one girl started it and the other girls were like, I'm going to do it because I don't want to be left out, bought the Pocahontas costume and modified it so that they could say they were not being Pocahontas for Halloween. They were being Nakoma for Halloween.
Oh my God. I missed this whole discourse.
I mean, this was a discourse, I think, limited to fucking 5 girls in my grade in first grade or whatever.
I'm sure it happened elsewhere. I'm sure this was a thing. I feel bad for ignoring Nakoma.
I love the bangs.
I want to point out, I looked up Nakoma on the Disney Wikipedia. She is the first human best friend to a Disney princess. That is how sad the life of a Disney princess was until the 90s. Your friend was an animal or like maybe a plant. Like you got nothing. I guess Sleeping Beauty has some fairies, right? She gets the fairies, but no human peer.
I mean, they're talking animals, right? Though.
I know, but like, what
That's
if you want to be
cool.
like, oh, my legs hurt? You know, you can't talk to a fish about that. Well, I guess Ariel doesn't have legs either, so I take it back. But you know, in general, yes, that's just a funny milestone. No human friends. Even Jasmine doesn't have human friends. She only has a tiger.
That's like a big old tiger and her dad.
I guess her dad's a friend.
Yeah, but that's why Guy Ritchie added Nassim Pedrad in a character that took America by storm.
Yes, that's true. I forgot about that. But in you could argue that Jafar is Jasmine's closest human friend.
Yeah, by default.
He's the only other human who's not related to her who lives in the palace.
He kidnapped her. That's like, that's intimacy.
And he's not very nice to her. Yes, exactly.
No, that's the thing. I mean, she fucking hates him, but he is by default.
She just wants to talk to another human who's not her dad.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Nakoma. Okay, yes.
Nakoma. We've come a long way from Nakoma.
We have come along. Although Moana also is fairly kind of friendless. There are the kids. There are other people. Yeah, her best friend, I guess, is a pig.
The ocean is a friend of hers.
The ocean's a friend. She's friends of all people.
Can you imagine
being friends with the ocean?
Yeah.
The whole ocean is your friend.
High five the ocean, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool.
You can't drown because the ocean's just like, get out of there. Get out of me.
I mean, look at David's background. His background is little baby Moana trying to touch the ocean with its...
her oldest friend.
Yeah, the abyss tentacle coming out. You could high-five that. You could even low-five it. You could too slow it.
Moana. I should also mention there is Lilo and Stitch. This is not Disney's first film. In
the Pacific Islands.
Right. I mean, Lilo and Stitch is contemporary, which is really unusual, obviously. Like that's practically unheard of for Disney. But I am no expert. I haven't seen Lilo and Stitch in so many years, so I can't even talk about it. I know you love it, Griff.
I love it.
Lilo and Stitch was a big deal also for me because it came out when I was like 12, I guess, and I just moved to Hawaii. And so it was like, oh shit, like Lilo and Stitch was everywhere. It was like they got the pigeon down, they have like everything. But I also haven't seen it in a long time. So.
I think that movie is perfect. I watch it a lot. I'd be curious to hear what you think of it today, Lenika. I do think that movie is so interesting because it like slipped through the cracks. I spoke erroneously in a previous episode saying that I thought it was animated in Hawaii, which is clearly just me conflating where it's set with where it was made. But the thing I knew was that it wasn't done by the main animation studio. And what it was they built an animation studio at Disney World in Orlando, mostly so that doing tours of it would be an attraction for people going to the theme park. And I think only 3 movies were ever produced there. And it was like Goofy Movie, Lilo and Stitch, and I think Mulan was the only like main one. And Lilo and Stitch was sort of supposed to be like a movie to let them do so there was a reason to keep those studios open. And it was a rare year where there were 2 Disney animated films because it was the same year as Treasure Planet. And that movie is a much smaller story. It's contemporary. It's a lot more psychological, which means I think it wasn't...
it's not a big, brassy Disney musical that gets folded into their whole princess.
Right. And it didn't get the same sort of calculations of you need to do this, we have to avoid this. And it does feel like because of that, there was less meddling. And it feels more culturally respectful than a lot of them to me.
Sure. But it's also smaller scale, like you said.
Right. They're not trying to represent everything. But this movie starts out with an entirely serious, like dramatic prologue, the story being told.
The myth of Maui, sure.
Right. We talked about the way these movies start, and there are a couple different kind of starter pack openings that they tend to pick from. There's the workers song, right? Where you have like the guy is picking the ice at the beginning of Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The fathoms below and
the
Mermaid,
crewman at the beginning of Little Mermaid and right, Pocahontas. Yes. You have a kid gets told a story. This is the legend. And then that's, this sort of conflates that with the very dramatic, epic backstory mythology opening. But it's the thing. I mean, we of course, when we did our Wonder Woman episode years ago, we talked about how Wonder Woman and Moana have a lot of similarities. But it's the same kind of thing where it's like you drop all the heaviest mythology stuff at the very beginning. You do it in this sort of like Cliff Notes, sort of hitting the high points in a sort of visual montage kind of way, and then you immediately pull out to little girl Moana. Everyone else is terrified by the story, and she's like excited by it.
She likes it.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone else is crying.
Right. You start considering the coconut.
Her dad, played by Tamura Morrison, the great Tamura Morrison, who it does not do the singing, of course, because Christopher Jackson from Hamilton, George Washington, does the singing, but he is her dad. I love Tamura Morrison. I feel like I've been sticking up for him a lot lately because of he's Boba Fett.
He's Boba Fett.
Her dad wants her to be. And we talked about Where You Are. We talked about the setup of this movie, which is great. I think.
I know that's why I'm trying to catch this up to the grandmother. I think is like the first major scene we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel House, who's so fucking good, is always so good. But having watched Soul recently, these are two movies where she arguably gives the standout vocal performance, and they're entirely different performances. Lenika, have you seen Soul yet?
Not yet.
She's very good in Soul.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. She's a lot of fun in Soul. She's got a.
Oh man.
Rachel House, obviously. People might also know her from Taika Waititi's movies. She's so funny in Hunt for the Wilder People.
Unbelievable.
She's really fun in Thor Ragnarok. But yes, she's great.
But these are like, just two really funny, full-bodied voiceover performances that sound entirely different from each other and different from her normal speaking voice.
Yes, absolutely. She's not an old grandma. Like she gives good grandma in this movie.
Yeah.
Not easy. Yeah, she's in her 40s or whatever. But I love the I Want song. How Far I'll Go, which was the sort of that was like the Oscar nominated song, right? That was the
should have fucking won. I cannot.
It should have won.
City of Stars.
Oh my god.
It's this crazy thing because the whole year figured it was going to win because I thought that because it was the year of Hamilton.
He had 3/4 of the EGOT.
Right. It was, Hamilton was at this deafening cultural moment. Lin Manuel Miranda did the music and lyrics for these movies along with Opatea Foy. I'm probably going to struggle pronouncing some of these, but it's basically it's a music group called Tivaka is basically doing all the music with him. But I just figured like the Oscars want Lin Manuel Miranda on the stage, don't surely
right.
this that But the whole La La Land thing kind of overwhelmed it. I guess they were just like, well, that's the musical. We have to give the musical the best song, right? Even though City of Stars is this sort of like
it's so fucking boring,
kind of forgettable. It's okay, it's like half a song.
La La Land became such a lightning rod, and it became like a love it or hate it, you have to defend or you have to attack it movie. And
I like La La Land.
I think it's fine. Like, it's always been a movie where I was just a little underwhelmed by it, but I think it's fine. I have no need to really attack it. I think it's lacking in a lot of ways. But if you're gonna give it to a fucking La La Land song over this song,
give it to one of the good ones,
which is so good. Give it to one of the fucking good ones. City of Stars is so goddamn boring.
Lenika, what do you think of La La Land? I don't know. I forget where you landed on La La Land.
I loved La La Land. Saw it once in theaters. I thought it was just like, I was like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. And then I never saw it again. And also felt conflicted by the stuff afterward.
Yeah.
Was very happy it lost. So that's where I was.
Well, yeah. Yes. I mean, in retrospect, I really like La La Land. I think it's a great movie. It's not as good as I think Moonlight was the incredibly worthy winner. The more we get away from that insane moment, which was obviously just like the most incredible television, like it was so crazy to watch it. It sucks so hard that happened. I hate that happened.
No. It was sad. Yeah. You had to be so gracious, like on stage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Right.
instead of just turned into this whole, like weird drama playing out in front of everyone. And again, very dramatic to watch it. Like I'll never forget watching it alone on my couch because Forky had gone to bed.
I thought it was a joke at first.
Yes, exactly. It was just like, what, like that weird tingly feeling where you're like, is something just going horribly wrong? Like, is someone being weird?
I think I immortalized that on Slack, David, because we were both covering it. It was like, I don't know what time it was, midnight or something.
Yes, like Forky, my partner, we call my partner Forky on this podcast, Lenika, had gone to bed because it was like, yeah, La La Land's wrapping this up. You know what I mean? Like Emma Stone had won, Damien Chazelle was, she was like, all right, I'm out of here. And yes, I remember Lenika, you and I just like screaming at each other, being like, what is this?
Yes.
My best friend and at that time neighbor, Sophie Fader, I knew she wasn't watching the Oscars because she didn't have a TV. And it happened. And I called her up and I was like, can I tell you what happened? Because this is going to be the only chance I ever get to tell this to someone who doesn't know. And just recounted what had just happened on TV. And she was like, that's the most bizarre sounding thing in the world. I watch it once every 2 months. And when I put it on, I have to watch it 5 times in a row. It is just like, it is some like incredible Renaissance, like portrait, like landscape painting where there's so many little things going on in the background.
Dwayne Johnson is like, yeah, Dwayne Johnson is sitting in the front row practically, right? He's one of the shocked faces in the tableau, right?
You just have to rewind it and go like, this time I'm just going to focus on who's sitting in the front row. This time, just the people on stage.
And was president by then, right?
Yes, he was. He had been sworn in. So fucking weird. That was the weirdest thing. I know you and I had talked about it and we were like, to some degree, it's kind of sad because now you just know that's the best thing that will ever happen at the Oscars. Like as dumb Oscar dorks like you and I are, David. It's just like, well, that's it. That's never going to be a moment like that ever again. I've now seen what will be the best moment of my entire lifetime.
Yeah, but I also hate it. I wish Moonlight had just won and then they would, because the people would have been blown out of their seats by that alone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I wish would have happened?
Yes, what?
I wish they had given Best Original Song to City of Stars and Justin Horwitz had gotten out there and gone like, thank you very much. This song, I put my heart and soul into it. And then the ocean rose up into the Kodak Theater and plucked the Oscar from his hands and handed it to Lin Manuel.
And then also splashed him.
Yeah.
Spit in his
Yes.
Hell yeah.
No, that's too much.
I just Justin Hurwitz rules. He's his First Man score is one for the ages.
Yeah, and he won the Oscar for that, did he not?
For First Man?
Yeah, did he not?
No, I don't think so. Poor First Man got, screwed over because Marco Rubio got mad at it.
I know. They should have given Justin Horwitz the Oscar for First Man and not for The City of Stars. Didn't he won score that same year?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. His score is great. It's a great score.
I agree. The score is better than City of Stars. City of Stars is a boring song.
City of Stars is just a dull fucking song. Anyway.
City of Stars is a boring song. It's just a boring song, period. But here's a song that's pretty exciting. City of Shorts, are you antimicrobial tonight? What about that? What about City of Socks? Do you use silver technology? Is that a more exciting song? City of Hoodies, do you have a totally free loyalty program connected to you? Listen, what I'm saying is I would rather watch a musical about Mack Weldon, okay? Because Mack Weldon is a premium men's essentials brand that believes in smart designs and high-quality fabrics. It's a one-stop shop for men's basics: socks, shirts, hoodies, 3 types of items made famous by the song that I just sang. The musical I'm slowly constructing. It's a parody of La La Land. It's called Mama Weldon. and it has a bunch of different songs, but every song is just sung to the tune of City of Stars, and it's City of Blanks, and then the name of the clothing item. Look, they also have underwear, polos, active shorts, all of which will make good songs in Mama Weld. And unlike the assortment of department store brands that make up your top drawer, all of Mack Weldon's basics have a consistent fit that you can count on. You're not just going to look great in Mack Weldon. They perform well, too. For working out, for going out, going to work, on a date, going out into the real world again for the first time in months. Mack Weldon is for everyday life. They offer a wide range of customized fabrics that can keep up with you no matter what your day looks like. We're talking 18-hour, silver, air knit X, dry knit, warm knit, cool, futuristic sounding technology that you can look up on their website. And they've created a totally free loyalty program. As I previously mentioned in one of my popular songs, level 1 gets you free shipping for life. Once you reach level 2, by spending $200, Mack Weldon gives you 20% off every order for the next year. And they want you to be comfortable. So if you don't like your first pair of underwear, that's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. You can keep them, and they'll still refund you. No questions asked. I love Mack Weldon. I love their stealth underwear and their Ace sweatpants. I'm wearing the Ace sweatpants right now. I swear to you, I looked down, double-checked, and I went, oh, right, I'm wearing Ace sweatpants. That's why I feel good right now. That's why today is a good day. I can't recommend them enough. Some of the best soft clothes in the business, and this is coming from someone who has converted to only wearing soft clothes 24 hours a day. So, for 20% off your first order, visit mackweldon.com/check and enter promo code CHECK. Okay? That's 20% off your first order at mackweldon.com/check, promo code CHECK.
We're moving on to the song we're talking about is How Far I'll Go.
Well, I just want to say, Grandma, I just feel like the combination of the character animation and the vocal performance, it's like the moment this character comes on screen, you're like, I like her. I like her. She's fun. She's got a unique energy. I know everything about her. And it's like a lot of these movies have like the kooky old grandma character, right?
Yeah.
Fun old lady, yeah.
Right, but it's like, are they insane or are they a genius?
Right, and an older person who has almost mystical qualities in their oldness. Like, are they wise or, right, do they have magic powers? Right.
She's got this giant back piece. Like, she's the only one who really understands Moana.
But I love that she is clearly wise from the get-go. Like, she is in her own power. She's funky.
She's funky as hell.
Real funky.
She likes to color outside the lines, but there's never the thing of just like, oh, this old coot. She's like, people think I'm a coot. I know what's fucking going on.
She notices everything, yeah.
Dude, I love when she's like, he's my son. I don't have to listen to him. I'm like,
Yes!
oh yeah.
Right. No, you don't.
Everything about her is cool.
And she calls herself the village crazy lady. Like, she's happy to lean into her status on the island, like when she needs to.
But she reveals to Moana, of course. She brings her into the cave. She shows her the ship. She reveals to Moana that that's the background of her people, that they were explorers. They used to sail the seas.
Which I think is great, too. Now, what do you guys think of We Know the Way? Which is not sung by a character. It's sung by Lin Manuel Miranda and Tivaka. Like, you know, they just sort of take over. And I talked to a friend who objected to Lin Manuel's singing. It was just like, I wish someone else was singing that song. But what do you guys think of this song? This song really always gets me. This is the one I weirdly thought was going to be the biggest song coming out of the screening.
I love the song. Yeah, this really hooked me. I like his voice. I can understand the argument against it because he's a rapper. He's great at writing songs, and
he's right. He's a fine singer, but that has never been his strong suit. Right.
His voice is so charming when he sings this, though. When you're singing about these islands, I'm like, I know you feel this, Lin.
That's the thing with Lin. He's got a very thin voice, but because he writes the songs himself, he writes songs that fit into his vocal range. And also because he is not naturally like an 8-octave singer or whatever, there is a very disarming sincerity to his singing because he's working really, really hard. And it's really genuine.
That is That is absolutely what people love and hate about him. That is exactly it. It's the sincerity, right? That's what drives some people crazy, I think, and obviously connects for so many people because it is hard to overstate how, and of course I know listeners remember this, it wasn't that long ago, but just how inescapable he was. Like, and remember the SNL episode right around this moment? Yeah, all that. Like, it's all, I mean, it is very difficult to survive something like that, I would say, as a famous person. You know what I mean? Like, just the complete overexposure, everyone seeing and weighing in on your work. You know, it's almost good that Hamilton then took years to actually come to the screens, like, because like that was the only thing that kind of delayed, you know, the total sort of staggering, conquering force of Hamilton, I guess. But Jesus.
I just saw it for the first time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's on Disney.
Pretty good.
Yeah, you enjoyed it. Well, that's great.
Hamilton's pretty good.
It lived up to the hype.
But also the sort of like clowning on Lin Manuel's earnestness, the biting of the lip, all that sort of stuff, I feel like came after this movie. Really, that's when it started to like percolate. People thought the Oscar was going to be the anointment at the end of the year. He didn't win it, but then people still started going like, is there too much of this guy? I think when the movie came out and you hear his voice in this song, it kind of felt like, well, of course. I mean, they're not going to not have him sing. He's got like the best-selling album of the year. He's not going to play a character. This is the one place they could fit it in. It's fine. And I think now when you watch it a couple years later, you're like, I can't stop thinking about the fact that it's Lin Manuel. Like now it's the one element that kind of sticks out of the movie, weirdly, even more than the rock of it all.
I don't mind it.
I like it. I don't mind it either. I just think that's where people, if they get frustrated by it, it's just like, I'm very much thinking about the fact that Lin Manuel is singing now.
Yes.
It depends on what happens this year, but 2021 is kind of the next year for him. Like this year.
His year. He has like 4 things coming out, right? Or something. Maybe.
He does. And I worry again that it's weirdly all packed together and people are going to get furious with him because he has Vivo, which is the Sony movie, right? The animated film that he did the music for. And he also has Encanto, which is the Disney movie that he did the music for. And then In the Heights, supposedly is definitely hitting this year because Warner Brothers is putting that out come hell or high water. And Tick Tick Boom is going to be on Netflix. Like, I just wonder. I mean, he's only directing that, so like it's a little different, but still, like it's
a lot of him.
It's a lot of him. I wonder how it'll go.
But I think the songs in this are so great.
I love the songs in this. I think it's a great score. I think that
they're so him. Yeah,
they are the sort of like storytelling element to them, like, you know, the full sentence, you know, we are you know, like that. I need to like look up the lyrics to do it exactly, but like, and I also just like the Disney tradition of like, let's get a big shot, you know, like no more messing around and like kind of cheaping it on the songs. Like, who's hot right now on Broadway? Let's bring them in. Like, you know, that's what they did with the Lopez's as well.
Right. But I was going to say, creatively, it's similar to the Ashman thing. You know, the difference is that, like, in between when they hired him for this movie and when it came out, Hamilton happened. You know, they were hiring the In the Heights guy. And that felt like, okay, here's a thing that was a Broadway show, but it was kind of a cult Broadway show. Avenue Q was a weird Tony winner. Get people who are kind of at the outskirts of mainstream musical theater and have that sort of sense of humor, sensibility. But he's a good fit. It is just bizarre to think, like, right, this comes out the year that Hamilton
opens
on Broadway, wins the Tonys, everything. Yeah, it's just so bizarre. I guess it opens in 2015, whatever it was. But here's the thing I love, and this is why I was talking about the way these movies open generally. It's like this movie gets to open with the serious mythology, then go on for like 15 minutes, and then this is like a second stealth opening of the movie. Like, this is the Virginia Sailing Company song.
When she leaves.
No, I'm saying when you have the We Know the Way song.
Oh, I see. Right. That's the sort of the This Is Who We Are working song. Like, yeah, right, yes.
And because it's almost like a flash sideways, it's like she touches, the flame goes up, she's like transported to this, like, you know, flashback. It's like she's saying, like, oh, this is the start of my movie. This is like a big, empowering opening number of a film that's now going to inspire me. And then I guess How Far I'll Go happens in between the two, right? between the grandma scene.
Yeah. That's her "I Want" song. That's the, I want to get out of onto the water, even though this island,
I'm sorry, it happens afterwards because that's when she sails out, right?
And she comes back. Yeah.
Well, no, that's the reprise. The reprise is
okay.
her
There we
sailing
go.
out. Yeah.
It is just a thing, like in the way Christopher McQuarrie talks about that, like the whole goal of the Wolf Blitzer thing in Mission Impossible is to make the audience think that they've broken the movie and then reveal that they actually were in control of it. When she does the reprise, when she gets out on the ship, when she starts sailing, I remember being like, are they rushing this? Like, it doesn't really feel like she's totally set up where she needs to be able to go out on her adventure.
To be clear, the reprise is when she gets out. The first rendition of the song, right, is her getting spit back out, right?
Right. That's what I like. I'm sorry, I'm misidentifying the two, but I like that she gets spit out the first time. I like that she tries to do it. The movie tries to convince you that she's ready for the adventure, and it's like, no, because it's setting up the fact that this movie is going to be about persistence. It is going to be about work ethic in some way.
Right.
Right. So then she gets spit back out. Grandma gets sick, gives her the out to escape. She does the reprise and actually makes it out into the water. David, I know we've talked about this in every single episode, how much watching every Musker Clements movie up until this point makes us appreciate 2D animation more than ever. And I like CGI more than you do. I feel like you naturally are a little bit more turned off by it than I am. You gave it a big thumbs down. But this movie I think is so beautiful, and so much of it for me is just the water animation in this is unreal, and you just couldn't do in hand-drawn in the same way.
It's why it's successful, I think, is how good the water looks. And also the fact that the movie's so colorful, like unlike Frozen, where everything is like blues and purples and kind of, like it's sort of muted weirdly. Like, this movie, like the costumes are very colorful, the villainous, the way the villain looks, the way I don't know. It's just sort of like a more attention grabbing movie for your eyes.
Well, she's on the water for like most of the movie. Like once you get away from the colorfulness of the island, it's just like her in the water, and the water has to have all these different personalities. It's like her friend, and then it's it's a storm, and it's a threat to her, and it's just doing all these things. And then the color doesn't come back until the end, which I will not spoil. I'm gonna jump ahead.
Fair enough.
But it works both as a character and as an environment. Because as you said, like most of the movie, she's on the water. I don't like water. Water scares me. I'm only comfortable when it's in my bathroom or in a glass that I'm drinking out of. I don't like pools. I don't like the beach. I don't like the ocean. I don't like being on a boat. I find this movie so relaxing visually. It's like a visual white noise machine, just watching the boat ebbing in the water, whether it's at night or during the day, whatever the color is, whether it's a storm or whether it's still. It's the thing that I think Pixar tried to do with Good Dinosaur and failed, which is like, can you have really cartoony characters with certain very realistic physics and elements? And despite the fact that the water sometimes acts like a magical supernatural creature, it also just, in most shots, looks like real water to a degree that is kind of astonishing. It's just hyper real enough, but like the fluid simulation is unbelievable in this movie.
Lenika, do you play Zelda, or have you just played the new one, the Breath of the Wild?
I've just played Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
Okay. Griffin, I'm assuming, like, just because there's the Zelda game, the Wind Waker, that's set mostly on like island chains, and a lot of the game is you sailing between islands. You have a little sailboat. And so a lot of the game is just going across the water with like nothing happening.
Love it.
I love that shit. It always relaxes me. I'm thinking of the Wind Waker, but just basically, like, I understand the peril that's fine. Give me peril once in a while, but like I also am pretty happy just kind of cruising on like a horizon, like with nothing to think about, and just like the sort of soundscape of the ocean.
I also think that's what I was going to say. This movie has less score than a lot of the Disney musicals. I feel like it's very comfortable, like sitting in the silence and just the sound of the waves for long stretches. That's the only thing underscoring their dialogue. But then, yeah, Maui doesn't enter until like 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. She gets into the storm, right? She leaves, she gets into a storm, and I think she's like basically trying to feel out the ocean and see how much of a friend it is to her. Like, she gets in the storm and she's like, "Can you help me?" And all she does is doesn't drown, but like it takes her to where she needs to go. And I think it's on that journey you start hearing a bit of the "you're welcome," like, playing as she's approaching Maui's island, right? But yeah, it takes forever to get there.
It's 35 minutes. Yeah. We should mention also the other thing is, of course, the movie sort of sets you up to think that Pua the pig is going to be the main animal sidekick, and it's a fake out. They leave her with the least effective animal sidekick in the history of movies.
He does one useful thing in the entire movie, right when you most need him to. Swallow the stone and give it to her. Picks up the stone.
Oh, give
to
it
her.
back. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. But Pua's too scared. Pig is really cute, but he goes up with her like on that first journey where you think she's gonna break out, and then he almost drowns, and then he sees an oar and he's like, no.
I love that misdirect. Like, her taking him the first time makes you think like, okay, he's gonna be the one by her side the entire movie. And instead it's like, no, the animal sidekick is an impediment. He is a conflict. He is a dilemma.
He keeps falling in.
He's not really cute. He's dumb.
Kind of annoying.
Yep.
They had like drafted him. He was in all the early versions of the script. He was supposed to be talking, and his whole character thing was he was supposed to be like very arrogant. Like, he thought he was an adventurer and he got things wrong. And they realized like, oh, that's a kind of too much like Maui. And they kept on retooling the character over and over again. But they like started animating. They were like doing shit. And it was at the point where they were like, you either have to cut this character or you have to solve it. Because like it's go time. Either we're going to remove him entirely from the whole thing, or you need to come up with a new take. And they just went like, what if he's just the dumbest character in the history of movies?
And he was.
Right. So it's Alan Tudyk doing the squawks because he was supposed to be the speaking voice for dialogue. And at the last second, they were like, no, he's just really dumb. Are you still on board to just squawk a bunch?
And he is. Because he also, I mean, wait, what's the other thing? Oh, right. Aladdin, he's Iago and he just squawks, right? There's no talking.
Now he's just becoming a squawker. Maui, obviously, this movie was sold so much on The Rock because he is such a famous person, and he was doing most of the press, and your female lead is an unknown teenager in her first movie role.
Who's wonderful.
Incredible.
I love that she seems to be sticking around. Like, she's on television.
Yeah.
She has what's that show? All Together Now. That was the Netflix movie. But no, what was the TV show she was in?
She did that Josh Radner NBC show. She's done like a handful of
Rise.
things.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
She did that Little Mermaid live concert where she kind of killed it. Yeah.
You know, these Disney movies are not quite as craven as like a DreamWorks or whatever in terms of like stuffing the movie with big stars. But yes, I mean, they're leveraging Dwayne Johnson's major image. Yeah.
You're making a Polynesian fairy tale. The biggest movie star in the world happens to be Polynesian right now. You're going to send him out there not just as the face of the movie, but kind of like an ambassador. I just like how much the movie is focused on Moana for the first 35 minutes, aside from the prologue, that when Maui enters, you're like, oh, right, he's part of this movie. Even though that's the thing that they sold me on, that you're really just invested in her, and then he comes in as sort of flavor.
Once again, I am now quite exhausted by Dwayne Johnson, Griffin. I think we have talked about this. His star persona has gotten a little relentless, feeling a little flattened, a little samey. The Jumanji sequel, the what's it called? Skyscraper, Hobbs and Shaw, right? These movies that just sort of feel like they're about how awesome Dwayne Johnson is. Once again, funny to consider that when this movie came out, I was like, oh, I like him. He's great. Sure. I enjoy him. He's in the Fast and Furious movies. Like, I like this run he's on. I'm having a great time and he's good in this.
It also, like, this was the point in time where he still let directors use him. You know what I'm saying? Like, Musker and Clements are very, very wisely and kind of cleverly using his persona to their advantage. In the same way I would argue Michael Bay did in Pain and Gain, in the same way I would argue Justin Lin initially knew how to do in Fast Five before he probably started arm wrestling control of the movies. The Rock becomes a problem when The Rock feels like he's not just a color on the palette, that he is Bob Ross. That everything has to be built in his image.
Right. Lenika, do you have strong feelings on The Rock, on Dwayne Johnson?
I don't, but I was thinking, like, what wasn't he when he was cast for this? He was like really nervous because he hadn't done voice acting.
Singing. I think singing was his biggest concern, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he was just like very, I think, deferential and just like, oh, did I do a good job? Like that kind of thing with this role.
One could argue that's the key to a good Dwayne Johnson performance, is a sense of humility and a sense of deference to the other people working on the film, as opposed to posting an 18 paragraph Instagram caption about why he chose to make Rampage. And explaining the larger points he was trying to make and telling the Rampage story and building out the new Rampage mythology.
If you remember, Rampage is the movie where there's it's based on a video game, and it's about a big gorilla that smashes things up.
I remember you wrote a very funny review of it.
You've edited so many of my reviews. I always wonder, like, if you remember the details of these stupid movies. Rampage is the movie, of course, where the gorilla gives a finger to the audience. That's like his big joke.
Also, two of the things that the big gorilla has to smash are a big crocodile and a big wolf. And of course, the film had the tagline, big meets bigger.
Right.
And it was because there was The Rock and then a gorilla.
Right. Okay. Yes. Big met bigger. Yes.
That's the other weird thing. Dwayne Johnson movies started having taglines that didn't reference the movie, but referenced Dwayne Johnson.
His imposing image.
Right. Or the central intelligence, which is, in order to save the day, they're going to need a big heart and a little heart and a big Johnson. Right. Lenika's covering her face and cringing.
I'm just remembering the billboards. Yeah.
That's the same year as this. That's 2016. That's when it's starting to overtake, I would say, a little bit, right? Where it's like he's really just playing Instagram's favorite Dwayne Johnson in movies versus like playing like a person or even.
Now pull up. Let me tell you a story. My dad once sat me down and gave me a shot of tequila and told me any man in this world has to be able to look a lion in the eye. And that's what inspired me to make my new film, Red Notice.
God, that right. Red Notice. We're going to have to put up with that this year.
We're going to have to get the notice.
Oh, God.
I just think he's very good in this. I think this is like exactly using all of his best qualities.
He and Ali'i have such great chemistry. Like, so cute.
They're adorable. It's a familiar Disney dynamic, I suppose, but like I love it. Like I like these sort of like
playfully combative. Yeah.
Right. They're sort of heading in different directions. They figure out how much they, complement each other and how much they're both, care about things. And that's the sort of respect, an alliance of respect is what they're building up to.
And that fucking You're Welcome's a lot of fun. I mean, it helps that like Lin Manuel knows how to write for people who have limited singing ranges, but he like gives them a song that he can knock out of the park. And he does. I love that number goes into the weird, like, sort of like collage-y cutout art backgrounds.
Yes.
I just get so excited whenever animation uses the
other kinds of animation.
Yeah. It's just like make everything look cool, make everything interesting, experiment,
It's inventive, it's very fun.
Oh, right. And then of course there's a whole extended Ben's background is now the tattoo, but that you have like a big part of the dance number is done on his chest. I like that the tattoos are 2D, like you're talking about using other mediums. And I also like that there's this sort of like, he's gotten Moana into the whole song and dance number. He's putting collage lei around her neck. He's singing and dancing so much that she doesn't realize that he's stealing the boat. Right. He's like using the song to distract her.
The mythology rules too. It's so cool. I never had heard any of those legends before. And I think it's like awesome exposure to all of them.
And I mean, the way that Maui is introduced in the prologue, it seems like he's like a villain, kind of. He's a shapeshifter, he's a trickster, he's a thief, he stole the heart of Tafiti, and now her island is dying. And this is the first time where you're like, okay, yeah, he's a little arrogant, but he seems like he's doing this for people. Like you're starting to like reimagine who he might be and like what his role in the story is actually.
He's like a high school quarterback who won't stop telling you how good he was in high school. Like which is endearing. He's arrogant, but it comes from a place of deep insecurity.
Exactly. That's the thing. His insecurity. Like the idea of a god who is not doing these things benevolently, but is like, come on, like, aren't I great? Come on, don't you like this? Like, is a much more compelling sort of, secondary protagonist, godlike character than someone who is just a big muscly hero who, we should all root for because he's a big muscly hero.
And You're Welcome is funny and catchy, but it also just sets up that character dynamic so well, so quickly. But I don't know if you know this, Moana is a really good kid, and she doesn't give up easily. She gets herself out of that cave. She chases Maui. He tries to throw her into the water, but the water won't fucking let him.
That's true. The water is trying to guide them together, as you said, Lenika, right? Like that's the idea here, is that's why he's essentially being released. From an animation perspective, I enjoy the physicality of the character. Like I like, how a Disney movie can make a person that looks so ridiculous move so like fluidly, like even though he's
an expert like wayfinder.
That's what and so the combination of like just the fluidity of how he moves and how he shapeshifts and how the water is and like how that's all being represented in completely different way. I like all that. I think that's cool.
Well, you realize pretty quickly that he's trying to get away because he's afraid. Like, he associates this little green stone with losing the hook, and the hook is the thing that he had based his entire identity on. Like, he's like, who am I if I don't have my hook? I'm not Maui. I'm not a demigod. I don't have any powers. I can't shapeshift. I've been on this island for 1,000 years. That's it.
It's true that Maui has a complex, that he thinks he is no one without his famous hook. And I have a little bit of a similar issue. When people think of me, of Downtown Griffey Nooms, of course they think about that kind bud, token out of control. I'm no one without some wacky tobacco in my hand. I'm famed for it. My relationship. I to bring back La La Land. Me and weed are like Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. It just, we go together on screen and off. But the space is getting a little disrupted these days. If you're talking about getting stoned, Ryan Gosling might get Emma stoned, but today we're talking about just getting plain old stone. And 3Chi is the industry leader in Delta 8 THC products. And I know this so well. This is my territory. I don't even need ad copy for this one. I know this stuff like the back of my hand. Okay, all these products were formulated by a biochemist, made in the USA with USA grown hemp. And when they released their Delta 8 products, they were the first federally legal THC products sold in the USA since Prohibition started almost 90 years ago. I knew that. I remember that. I was following it very closely in the news. Delta 8 is a federally legal version of THC. And Delta 8's effects are a perfect hybrid of CBD and Delta 9, two things I know very well, giving it a similar buzz and all the medicinal effects of Delta 9 without the laziness, anxiety, paranoia, or mental fogginess. Delta 8 users report feeling far more active and outgoing with increased confidence and almost none of the anxiousness and paranoia associated with Delta 9 usage. Okay, so I just want to restate. Delta 8, federally legal version of THC, more functional alternative to marijuana for those who want the same great feelings without the negative side effect. That describes me to a T. And Delta 8 will have you feeling amazing, yet functional and clear-headed instead of lazy and paranoid. 3Chi isn't just the best in the Delta 8 industry. They invented the industry. And 3Chi's Delta 8 is 100% hemp-derived, federally legal, and available online at 3chi.com. That's the number 3, CHI.com. And at select retailers around the country. You got to be 21 and over to purchase, okay? This is not for our little blanky babies. I know we got a lot of babies who listen to the show. You need to be over 21. And I'll say they sent me a box of product, and man, I can't wait to use all of this. Black raspberry gummies, watermelon gummies, London pound cake. That's a vape flavor I have here. The snowman. This one's just called Snowman, leaving you all the clues. So that's what I got here, and then a dropper, and then a vape, and it's all stuff that, you know, it was almost unnecessary to send to me because I just already have so much of this stuff lying around my house. But I appreciate it because this is a much higher quality. So once again, go to 3chi.com. It's the number 3 chi.com to shop for Delta 8 vapes, gummies, tinctures. We all know what tinctures are. I know what tinctures are. There's no one needs to have tinctures explained to them. And oils that can be used to make homemade edibles. Because if there's one thing I love more than getting stoned, it's cooking. Use code BC2021 at checkout to receive 5% off your order. You gotta be 21 to purchase. That's 3chi, buddy. Yeah, you were talking about the appeal of Disney animation, David. Because we've talked about some of like the principles of Disney character animation and like what the wise old men, the original Disney animators like Ollie Johnson, Frank Thomas created. But I want to pull this up because it's just like I was thinking about this a lot while watching this movie and how well this movie executes all of these at pretty much every moment. There's sort of what the old Disney animators defined as the 12 principles of character animation.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, squash and stretch, anticipation, staging, straight ahead action and pose to pose, follow through and overlapping action, slow in and slow out, arc, secondary action, timing, exaggeration, solid drawing, and appeal. I'm not going to break all those down. A lot of them are sort of self-evident, or they sound like what they are. But it's just a thing that, like, it just feels like every performance in this movie is detailed and thought through enough that it's really functioning on all those levels at all times, you know?
Yes. And the intimacy, or intimacy is the wrong word, but the small scale of it almost helps. It's not busy because we have these sort of small ensemble. We know them all really well by the end of the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Lenika? Sorry.
No, I was just thinking, like, once Maui's on that boat, once the two of them are on that boat together, you finally have this, like, the dynamic, like the physical dynamic between the two of them of, like, throwing each other off. Like, you know, they have to share this very tiny space for a good chunk of the movie. And so those principles that you were just mentioning, like, become even more important in I mean, they do have a lot of dialogue, but, like, the way that they move and behave around each other, kind of like taking the measure of each other and realizing how similar they actually are. I think all of that, like, the animation does so much lifting there.
Yeah. And there's like they do that one big montage once he's finally relented and agreed to teach her, and you're seeing the evolution of her learning. It is so much about the physicality of the two of them and the weird intimacy of, like, it's such a small space. Like, you just think about, like, they're on like a raft in the middle of a giant ocean for days together. You also get a Peepee joke in there, which is good, very funny.
2 Peepee jokes.
Right, they bring it back.
Yes, at least 2.
After that is the Kakamora scene, right? That's the Coconut Pirates. That's like the big action scene. I mean, like many a Disney movie, we only have one song left at this point. We're halfway into the movie. The only song left is Shiny, which is a very fun song that I enjoy.
Well, but they do 2 more small.
They do
Yes.
reprises. But much like Frozen, weirdly wrapping up its songs in the middle of the movie and having the troll song be the last song. Like, it's just funny.
It bums me out. Yes.
How they shift to action mode for sort of the final act of these movies sometimes.
I'm just waiting for one of these movies to have the courage to have songs all the way through.
Give us an 11 o'clock number, essentially.
Right, they do those 2 echoes with Grandma and How Far I'll Go Again, which at least makes it feel like music is still in the lifeblood of it. Shiny is just my absolute jam. Everything about this sequence fucks so hard in my eyes. I love Tamatoa. I love this performance. I think there's something really simultaneously funny and unnerving about how big he is.
He's kind of spooky, you know, even though he's a comic villain.
terrifying.
Yeah, he's pretty
He
weird.
seems goofy. Like, you think he's gonna be terrifying, then he turns out to be goofy, then he's actually terrifying. When he goes like that glow in the dark situation.
Yes. His blacklight mode, but also like his head is pure squash and stretch, right? Which is pretty much just like
Right. The way his eyes move. Right.
Animate things like they don't have bones, like they don't have a skull, right? That their physiology can change based on their mood. And his whole face does that. Obviously, his body, his shell, his claws are more rigid, right? But his head is like silly putty, and his eyes are spinning all over the place. It's getting longer and flattening out and whatever. But also, there's that weird thing. I don't know what the fucking principle of physics is here, but that thing like that Pacific Rim does well, where like incredibly large objects moving fast would still look slow to us because of the perspective of, you know, our range of vision. And there's that thing where he's simultaneously, depending on the shot, moving like very fast or looking like he's moving slow, whether you're seeing it from the perspective of like the God's Eye camera or from Moana or Maui. And there's also just something unnerving about seeing these characters who have been our focal point the whole movie being that tiny, like just being flung around in his claws. I love this number. I also just love that it completely breaks the style of every other song up until this point. Like all the music has been of a piece, and then now you just have this fucking David Bowie number with this weird glam crab. I love it. I just remember giggling like a lunatic seeing this in theaters for the first time.
Shiny is great. I like both of these action sequences a lot because they have humor to them. You know, the coconut pirates and the crab, like they have the Moana and Maui working together and working at odds at the same time. You know, like that's a tough dynamic to do without it feeling frustrating. Like, you know, there's only so much we want the two leads to not be friends. Like we want to see how they work together. This kind of takes a while for them to do that, but it doesn't ever really feel annoying.
Yes.
I just think that's difficult. Like that's all. Like I'm just sort of impressed by that.
And even from the like the Kakamora to Tamatoa, like first one, Maui's trying to get he is not invested in protecting the heart at all. He just wants to get the hell away from them.
Yeah, he wants his hook and that's it. Right. Yeah.
Right. And the second one, like she does the diversion and Maui's like, oh wait, do you solve the heart? So he's like, there's already been some growth in that fairly short amount of time.
Because she's proving herself too as like a capable and, you know, dynamic person. And the first time I saw this movie, I remember just kind of being like, oh yeah, there's a lot of action at the end, you know, and like just sort of not being as emotionally connected to it. And I don't understand why, because there is the wonderful scene with the grandma. There's this, you know, her singing I Am Moana. You know, there are all these big sort of soaring moments that totally worked for me this time. I don't know. I mean, just been elected. Whatever. That's my excuse.
Yeah, and also, I mean, right, the Krakatoa is like the most conventional sort of manic action sequence, right? Then Tamatoa is like half musical number, half action sequence. And then you have the first failed attempt at defeating Te Fiti, which is very much like big action epic thing. But the denouement of this movie does become more intimate again. And you have that grandma scene in the middle, you have the sort of Maui heart to heart, him leaving. I mean, there are real emotional beats they go back to. The grandma stuff just like, I remember I saw this, I think, the first time with our friend of the show, Rachel Lang and Alex Pitts. And Rachel just started bawling the second the grandmother came back. And I went like, why are you crying so much? She went, I'm just so happy she turned into a stingray.
I mean, she made good on her promise earlier. Like, what was her like dying words were, there's nowhere you can go that I won't be with you. And I just, every time I'm just like, oh my God, Grandma Tala, my grandma speaking to me.
Right, because that's the kind of thing a character says, and you're like, okay, that's like a thing. She's saying like in your heart. Right, and it's like, no. She's literally saying she'll follow you anywhere. She's a magical stingray lady ghost now.
You literally see the lights in the village go out and like her spirit turning into a stingray humming with her. When she transforms, like after Moana and Maui have their falling out, like she thinks she can make it past the barrier islands and again ends up getting his hook that he had worked so hard to get back like broken. He leaves and she's actually like the last thing he says to her is like, you know, the ocean chose wrong. Like, you're not the chosen one. And this entire time, like I know that she doesn't really grapple with like a major character flaw, but if there's one thing that she does, like if her coming of age story has some kind of arc, it's like going from telling yourself, you're the chosen one, you're going through the motions of being the chosen one because your grandma told you and, the ocean chose you and you're listening to other people telling you who you're supposed to be, but she doesn't believe it. Like, she's doubting herself. And then like, I think she goes from being the chosen one to realizing that she can make a choice. Like she tells the ocean, like, choose someone else. And the ocean isn't like, no, Moana, you have to go on. It's like, all right, like,
we'll take the thing. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
the heart just falls down. And then even the grandma says, like, I shouldn't have put so much on you. Like, you can go back home. She gives her an out. It's like, you don't have to do all this. But then, like, right before her oar hits the water, she hesitates and she realizes, like, and then her ancestors come out and they, like, she's not alone. It's so beautiful. She's been out on this ocean by herself, with the exception of Maui, just like feeling like she's carrying the weight of all these of her village, and they're there with her. Like, she knows where she's from. She came from, and so now she knows where she can go. Like, it's beautiful.
You need Maui to not be there. It has to be her and her people. Right. Yeah. Not this sort of demigod.
Right. It plays so much better emotionally with her by herself. It also gives Maui the chance to like have his cool fucking Han Solo, I did actually care return.
And I do like that anytime he's an animal, it's a chonky animal. I'm sorry. Like
with cool
come
hair.
on. Yeah, I enjoy that.
The bit where he's the half shark and he doesn't realize it is just funny. It's just funny comedy. No, incredibly well said, Lenika. I also think that's like another kind of nuanced thing this movie is getting at in terms of it being like, this is a movie about how you figure out how to become a responsible adult, like how you be your own person. Is to some degree she has to learn that it is good to doubt yourself, right? That so much of this movie has been like, I know I'm right. I have to do this. It doesn't matter what anyone tells me. And that part of the equation is if you don't ever doubt yourself, that's worrying. You should not always believe you're correct. You need to have those questions.
You're covering something up or something if you really feel that way. Because like Maui presents himself that way. But then, of course, the big realization is, no, this guy is crippled by doubt. Like that's why he keeps doing crazier and crazier things. And that's why it's so good that the arc of this movie is after she gives the heart of the ocean to back to Te Fiti is that she goes home and her parents are like, we're glad you're home. And it was clearly good for you.
Right. There's no scolding.
Yeah. And like, clearly, like, I'm glad, like, you look great. Clearly this was a good thing for you to do. It suits you. That's
and also, like, you were right. Thanks for saving us. Our coconuts aren't turning into dust anymore. We can once again consider them.
Which is great. But that almost feels secondary to, yes, it was scary for you to leave. And that's what I was afraid of. But I recognize that was the right thing to do.
But yes, the fact that her return is just them running to her with joy, that it's not any like, oh my God, and there's no scolding or whatever. It's so nice. And it is like, it's disarming, that final Te Fiti sequence. Like, I was just still having seen this so many times, taken by the imagery of like, she is genuinely scary looking. She's a giant volcano lady. And we've seen her already like make a, quick business of our heroes the first time. And to see Moana just stand up to her and stand still and hold out a stone. And then that shot where you see them in profile.
And recognize that this is a wounded creature too. This is someone
beautiful.
Right, yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Beautiful. But that shot where it's like the two of them in profile, Moana holds out her hand to the bridge of Te Fiti's nose. I fucking love it.
Just let her come to me, and the ocean just parts, and it's like, it's so fucking badass. It's great.
And also to a degree, like the lesson she's learned that helps her defeat her is just like, she understands why people behave certain ways now. She understands that this is a wounded person, that she has to show compassion and not treat her as an enemy.
Well, she's forgotten who she is, and it's all about self-knowledge and I mean, well, yeah, I'm glad we came back to that, because like the moment when she stands, she Maui has distracted Te Kā, and she climbs the mountain to put the heart back, and she sees like,
it's like essentially like a corpse has been drawn in the ocean, basically. Yeah, like a chalk outline.
Right. Like the image was sort of like reminded me of, the nuclear tests they did in the Marshall Islands, like post World War II. It had a bit of that to it. And even like the explosion had a kind of like nuclear test feel to it.
It's spooky. Yes, right. She gets knocked down by this black blast radius. Yeah.
Right. I mean, she turns around, she realizes, and then like holds up the stone, or holds up the heart, and it's like she's so brave. Like you just see she knows in that moment, she recognizes, because she knows who she is now, and she recognizes what it's like for someone else to not know who they are. And realizing that Tekka and Te Fiti are the same character was like so powerful.
She fucking leads with empathy. It's so touching. And seeing the transformation, the green cracking through and all of that, it's just so beautiful on every level.
That's the other time the animation, like the computer animation, just really like, it just blows your mind seeing that green burst through.
Right. The colors. I mean, the way the lava is animated too, much like water, like, just the sort of, the intensity is higher in 3D. That's where the CG is undeniable. Like, even though I do love a hand-drawn movie, and I'm sure I would have loved this if it was a hand-drawn movie, but
Lenika, I have a 3D TV. I bought the last model of 3D television before they were discontinued in the United States because I didn't want to miss out on a trend that had clearly already failed. But I watched this movie in 3D, and I do think that, like, this movie is more impressive as a two characters on a boat in the middle of the ocean movie than Life of Pi. Like, this movie does for me what I think a lot of people felt. Like, oh my, you won't believe the immersiveness of this. I also just want to point out, my 3D glasses that I now use while wearing while watching 3D movies at home are Anakin Skywalker's pod racer goggles.
Wow. Did you got these special?
We got these for George Lucas Talk Show, but this is when Phantom Menace was re-released in 3D at the peak of the 3D trend. They thought a new revenue stream was going to be selling premium 3D glasses. And unsurprisingly, you can now get these for $1 on eBay. So I was
just sitting there, just right there within arm's reach.
But I was like watching the movie. Well, because I want to show it to you folks. I was watching the movie like this and like crying and laughing. And then I was like, okay, time to record the podcast. And I go to the bathroom and look in the mirror and I realize I look like this. I'll post a photo. But it's just like, I forgot while having this very emotional experience that I looked like a young Anakin beating Sebulba in a pod race.
Now this is pod racing.
But yeah, she just fucking saves the day.
She does. But there's no villain. I mean, I know that the crab is a secondary villain, but like, I think I was sort of taken aback because the villain is such a crucial part of these modern Disney movies. Like the villain that you sort of root for and has his own song or her own song, like that's like part of the fun. And this movie very successfully eschews that. It, also kind of an unusual thing.
No, the Tamatoa is a temporary conflict in the same way the Krakatoa are, but this movie doesn't have an overarching villain. It doesn't have a love interest. It's an aromantic relationship between a male character and a female character, and it's really just about figuring out who you are and how you function independently out in the world, which is like a pretty big thing to make a movie about because it's not something that cleanly fits into a very kind of precise clockwork narrative,
Lenika, is there anything we haven't talked about in the movie that you want to talk about before we play the box office game?
I mean, the end of the movie, you said, David, no more songs, but they do, of course, do a We Know the Way reprise as well.
They go back on the ocean. It's wonderful. I'm crying again. Like the pig finally gets to be on the water too, which is a big
Who is on the water, baby?
Yeah, because the boats are big. Right, yeah.
Oh, so he deserves it.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, is there anything we haven't talked? I mean,
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
I love Moana. Every time I watch it, I'm like, all right, gonna have a couple of cry moments in here. And like, it just never, the Te Fiti scene at the end just always like punches me in the face.
It's the grandma scene for me. But I just, the whole time I'm watching it, I think the same thing over and over again, which is just, Moana's a really good kid.
She is good. She loves her family. She loves her people. She like, in the end, she doesn't want to run away from them. She wants to. It's like, the song at the beginning is like a very conservative song. Like, we don't leave, we don't change anything. This is how things are. And and like she brings them back to the way things were before that. Like she helps them return to the traditions that made them who they are. Like it's such an interesting. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, okay, there's all these layers in
I
terms
know.
of like,
I
It's great.
just want to fucking pull Chief Tui aside and go like, look, I'm sure you hear this all the time, but I just gotta tell you, your daughter's a really good kid.
She's a great kid. You got nothing
You
to worry
raised her
about
right.
there. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. This is another thing I never realized. Nicole Scherzinger of the Pussycat Dolls is the mom?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Those pipes cut through the first song. Yeah.
Never realized that. Yeah.
Yeah. Her mom is Hawaiian and her dad is Filipino.
Mm-hmm.
She's good. No complaints about Nicole Scherzinger.
Now, this movie did win the Oscar, right?
No.
It didn't win?
No, Zootopia did.
Fuck, I forgot this is the same year as Zootopia.
That's the thing. It was a rare double Disney movie year, and Zootopia was this like sort of financial juggernaut that got very good reviews, and Moana became this weird afterthought. It's a great year for that category because the nominees are, these two movies, Kubo and the Two Strings, which like
Oh yeah.
has its faults in terms of the cast is, that's this sort of egregious, annoying thing about, but the movie itself is very pretty and beautifully animated. And, I like it a lot. My Life is a Zucchini, one of the top 5 titles of a movie ever is My Life, which is a good movie.
My Life is an Aubergine.
Yes. Right. In Europe, My Life is a courgette.
Courgette. Oh, sorry.
Courgette,
Not aubergine.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
My bad.
And The Red Turtle, which is, I don't love that movie, but it's, again, beautiful, like really, really pretty.
But that might be 5 for 5 the best that category's ever been.
A very good year. And Zootopia is the winner. And I like Zootopia. Haven't seen it in a while, as I said, but like,
this movie's much better. Yeah, this movie's much better. That's so fun. I just in my mind corrected that.
It lost. It was nominated for 2 Oscars and lost both of them.
That's another thing of like, this movie did incredibly well, but
did very well.
Frozen was 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier, and just like blew the doors off. So it's like Frozen, and then in between Frozen is Big Hero 6 and Zootopia. So it was like, oh fuck, this is the next Disney princess movie. They have the Hamilton guy. This is going to be like a juggernaut. And it was just instead a massive hit. But I think
it did very well.
But I think the bar was so goddamn high that it wasn't a disappointment, but people were just like, oh, I guess that did well.
I mean, seriously, you just can't underrate the weird, just cultural like atom bomb that is those 3 months, November, December, January, like where everyone's just kind of like, oh my God, like it's like the only story. So I think that's part of it too. Yeah.
It is also so bizarre that Zootopia was such a fucking humongous hit 6 months before got elected. And it's like a movie that's pretty explicitly, clumsily arguing against like, I know not directly, but it's a movie about like the government using fear mongering.
Griffin then won Zootopia. He
did
flipped
win
it.
Zootopia.
The blue wall. He flipped Zootopia. That's what, 14 electoral votes?
But you know how he won, right?
I don't know.
Because he was willing to try everything.
He would try it. That does make me cry in Zootopia when she moves to the big city and Try Everything is playing on her.
I like
iPod.
Zootopia.
Yeah, I do. And moving to the big city, that's the like Ben was saying. Like this Moana is not this, but it's still the same thing. Striking out on you right now. Look,
she moves to the Ocean City. Yeah. Okay. So this is the thing. We've covered this exact weekend, the box office game, too many times, and as recently as Allied. So we felt like we can't just do the 5 again. So I suggested we do an alternate thing to commemorate the end of this miniseries, the end of Musker and Clements, which spans 30 plus years of Disney animation. I suggested we do a box office game of the top 10 Disney films. We're talking Walt Disney Studios animation.
Yeah, so no Pixar and no remakes.
No
fucking Lion King 2019.
And no Disney Toons. We're talking the big
obviously not.
Traditional, right, okay.
So go on, give me the number 1 animated Disney film of all time, Griffin.
Now, are you looking at a worldwide list or a domestic list?
No, it's domestic only. I can't find a worldwide
Okay.
list. That's too complicated.
So is Lion King still number one domestic?
Not even close.
It's Frozen 2 and then Lion King? Or Frozen?
Nope.
Really?
Frozen 2 and then Frozen. Those are the top two.
Even with Lion King's 3D re-release included?
Yes. I don't know. Look, I'm going by it. Look, Griff, this list was hard to find.
Okay, so give me the numbers.
Frozen 2 made $477 million
Jesus.
in America alone, which is a lot of money.
Jesus. Right, and it made like $1.2 billion or something. Yeah.
Frozen 1 made $400 million. So those are the top two. They are just, sizable things. And number 3, Griffin.
Is not Lion King?
Nope.
Number 3 is Zootopia?
Is Zootopia. The movie about a Zootopia. What if there was a Zootopia?
Zootopia did like 360? What did it end up at?
341.
Wow.
And number 4 is The Lion King, which made 312.
Wow.
Now, obviously, The Lion King made that in 1994. So if you
Yes.
adjust for inflation, The Lion King, yes, was, an unstoppable force in its own right. But still.
Multiple re-releases, yes.
But what's number 5?
Number 5 would be... Okay, so 312. So what's the thing that's closest to that number? Aladdin is low 2s.
Do you want a hint?
Yes. This movie ends up at 260, right?
Yes. And the hint is it's this movie.
Okay.
It's Moana.
It's Moana.
Moana is the 5th most successful Disney movie, unadjusted for inflation.
Wow.
248.
Long tail, too. You were looking at the box office. It did like 4.5 times its opening weekend. 5 times its opening weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. It had good legs. But the thing is, it's just also, the model changed and these things became more than just kids' movies and everyone went to see them. And that's just the difference between a Moana and a Little Mermaid, as well as the Little Mermaid did,
Yes.
What's number 6, Griffin? It's another of this, the last decade.
Right. It's not Big Hero 6, is it?
It's Big Hero 6, which I saw and enjoyed, but I couldn't tell you a damn thing about that movie except that there's a big pillow robot and I enjoyed watching him. Did you see Big Hero 6, Lenika?
I did. I also can't remember anything other than it was really cute.
Yeah, it's cute. And they're heroes. His dad or brother is dead. There's a dead
Someone
relative.
died.
The brother dies. The big brother dies.
It was sad early on. That's all I remember.
Number 7, Griffin, is a movie we discussed on this miniseries.
So number 7's Aladdin. Number 8
Yes.
is Tangled. Is that correct?
That's correct. No, I'm sorry. No, Tangled is 9. What's right above it? Just a tick above it. Another recent movie. We've discussed it on this podcast. Ben's a fan.
Oh, is it Ralph 2 or Ralph 1?
It's Ralph 2. He broke the internet.
Man, just what a dominant run this has been for them.
And then Ralph 1 is 10.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's just the recency rules.
Yeah.
Because then Tarzan is the next one, which was a huge hit. Kind of forget about that. And then go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
Are they going to make a third Ralph?
They should. I don't know what on earth they would make it about.
I mean, if he needs a new friend, I'll hang.
Lenika, Ben really likes Wreck-It Ralph, specifically. He loves the character Ralph.
His face lit up when you mentioned it.
Yeah.
The Ralph trilogy, of course. Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and Ralph Meets Ben.
Ralph just hangs out with Ben.
Yeah.
The next one after that is Beauty and the Beast after Tarzan.
Yeah.
And then Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah.
Big hit. Then Pocahontas. Then does Dinosaur count? Are we counting Dinosaur?
Dinosaur counts. Dinosaur counts. Yeah.
What if there was a dinosaur? And then Mulan.
Yeah. Wow.
And then Balt.
Yeah.
And there you go. And now I'm done.
I mean, and obviously the overseas numbers just
that'll
for these.
right,
No. But I'm
things,
just
right.
saying for the later movies. I mean, they were always big hits internationally, but this recent wave of the last 10 years, the worldwide numbers have just been ridiculous. I mean, it's it really has been a third renaissance for them, where it's just they kind of they've won the Oscar 3 times. They've had
they sort of began to outstrip Pixar.
Yeah.
They would start winning that Oscar, the animated feature Oscar, and whereas Pixar was pumping out sequels, and people were getting a little sort of disillusioned
Yeah.
with the Pixar thing. Right. I mean, the Pixar will win. They won for Coco. They won for Toy Story 4. That was sort of a weak year.
But
though.
they've all been huge hits. And I feel like people were surprised that Toy Story 4 won. I think people were resigned to the idea that Frozen 2 was going to win just because Disney had been so dominant. But Toy Story 4 is better.
Frozen 2 wasn't even nominated.
It wasn't even nominated?
No.
Hey,
It was
so
not.
what was the thing that people thought was going to win?
They didn't. They thought Toy Story 4 was going to win. But like that Frozen 2 obviously early on looked like the juggernaut. Yeah. But no.
What were the
end,
other nominees that year?
Okay. How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Uh-huh.
Klaus on Netflix. Missing Link, the Leica movie, and I Lost My Body, which was the critical fave, which is a good movie. Those were the nominees. And this year, God knows what the nominees will be. What a weird year.
Yeah.
2020 Oscars. They're going to be not a bummer at all.
No, they're going to be normal. God. I'm very terrified by how quickly people have gone back to like, no, but we need to do the award shows in person. Like there are so many ways to do an award show during a pandemic. I'm not saying the Emmys were perfect, but they at least were interesting in trying to figure out how to do it responsibly.
Yeah, they did some stuff that was kind of interesting. And they don't know what they're doing. They
But
don't
then
know
like
that it's gonna be in
whatever
person.
it was, the Country Music Awards, they were like, no, we think it's good if we like test everybody and then put them all in an auditorium together. And then like 80 people got sick.
Yeah.
Well, don't do that.
No good. Very bad. Don't do it.
All right, Griffin, the only other thing we got to do is we got to rank the Clements and Muskers. There's only 7.
Yeah, I'm ready to do it.
Go ahead. You should. Well, no, I'll go first because I feel like mine are boring.
Okay.
All right. I'm number 1, Little Mermaid. Number 2, Aladdin. Number 3, Moana. Number 4, Hercules. Number 5, Princess and the Frog. Number 6, Great Mouse Detective. Number 7, but a worthy final entry is Treasure Planet. Like, I don't want that to
Wow.
feel like The Cellar Dweller.
Wow.
Like,
Okay.
I like all these movies.
You're gonna, I think, be outraged by the list I'm about to count off.
No, I don't care. I'm ready.
Number 1, after this talk, I'm only feeling twice as empowered to do it. Moana, baby. She's a good kid.
Right.
Hell yeah.
She is Moana. I just like how
Moana.
many times in the movie she has to sing her own name.
She is Moana of Motunui.
It gets me when she does it at the end.
Yeah.
The big. Yeah.
Yes. There's rarely a movie in which a character's name is said this often, and I think no other movie where a
Moana.
character's name is sung this often.
Yeah.
Moana, number 1. Number 2,
I think I know what it is. Yeah, Hercules. You love Hercules.
I love Hercules. Herc won me back, baby. I was out and I'm
Lenika, do you
back
like
in.
Hercules? Are you a Hercules fan, Lenika? Have you seen Hercules since you were a kid?
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I loved Hercules. When I was a
It's
kid.
good. It's really clever and fun. Like it's worth a rewatch.
And it looks so cool. The designs are so good. Number 3, Little Mermaid.
Mhm.
Then I'd say number 4, I'm going to say Aladdin.
Don't get too cute.
Treasure Planet.
Uh-huh.
Great Mouse Detective.
Wow, you put Frog at the bottom. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Frog's the only one I don't really like.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't dislike it, but I don't really like it.
Lenika, do you like Princess and the Frog? I'm sorry, I'm just bouncing all of these off you right now. You don't have to have an opinion on them.
I've always felt guilty for not seeing it because I feel like everyone I know has seen that movie.
Good.
But I've seen Aladdin like at least 1 million times. At least. Before the age of 5.
But that's it. Yeah, no, I knew Hercules would be your either 1 or 2, Griff. I know you love Hercules.
Yeah. I mean, I do think Little Mermaid's kind of undeniable, but I have to be honest to what I hear in my heart. I have to listen to the heart of the ocean. It tells me Moana's number 1, Hercules is number 2, Little Mermaid's number 3.
That's fine. That's A-okay.
We had already announced our next miniseries. We had said that earlier because it's a little harder to find these movies, but we've now finished out Musker and Clements. Next week, you will hear us do the Blanky Awards if all goes
right.
according to plan. We will not be holding a ceremony in person. I want to make that very clear. We are
No.
not going to make the same mistakes that the Country Music Awards did. That having been said, Darius Rucker will be hosting, schedules permitting.
I love Darius Rucker. That sounds great. I would love to work with Darius Rucker.
What if I went on cameo and tried to figure out how much it would cost to have Darius Rucker introduce each category.
There's no one I love enough to pay for a cameo. No one on earth. Not even Colin Farrell. Like, I just, no, that's okay.
But it's tax deductible. We're a business.
I understand.
We're paying him as a performer. We're supporting
Sure.
the arts. We're trying to keep the arts alive. But yes, next week, we're closing out the month of March with the Blanky Awards. And then, of course, April is May. For the entire month of April, we are watching the 4 films of Elaine May. So get to work on that, try and track them down. New Leaf, available on a Blu-ray from Olive Films. Heartbreak Kid, hard to find. Do some searching. Mikey and Nikki, available from Criterion. Ishtar, available from Sony. Some of them have been streaming at different points in time. But we're giving you the advance warning.
Potty and Casty.
Yeah, I guess that's what it's called, right?
April is May?
April is May. And let me just explain this, because Lenika, you're hearing this for the first time.
Yes.
The joke is that the filmmaker we are covering next month, her name is Elaine May. That is her surname.
Okay, not the month.
Well, but then here's this. This is where the comedy comes in. Okay, there's sort of a wry twist
Griffin,
here,
I have to
which
pee.
is
No, keep going.
I want to know. I want to understand.
she's only made 4 films, tragically. But in this one circumstance, it works out to our advantage that her filmography is limited because there are 4 weeks in a month. And the month is April. And we can do all 4 May movies in April. And thus, April, the name of the month, is May, the name of the director.
Hold for laughter. Okay, great.
Keep holding.
Keep holding.
And if you in the edit can just place in a ton of laughter there. Because I know people listening at home are going to be laughing, but I want them to not feel alone. They're going to feel more encouraged to laugh if they hear other people laughing.
Sure.
David is massaging his temple as he listens.
Classic David move. Temple massage.
Lenika, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. I feel we have thoroughly considered the coconut.
Oh, that's right.
I think this was a pretty fair consideration.
Mm-hmm.
The meat, the tree, the leaves,
FYC.
Yes.
fibers.
FYC,
All
the
of it.
coconut.
All of it. Is there anything you want to plug or direct people towards, Lenika?
What am I supposed to say?
The Atlantic. Read The Atlantic.
Oh, the Atlantic, our workplace.
Our workplace, we love
Read
it.
David Sims at the
Oh,
Atlantic.
shut up. Get out of
No.
here, you maniac.
Read my BTS stories at the
Read your
Atlantic.
BTS stories. You've been on some pods, I feel like. We were just talking about that, right? You were on a couple-
I live on Twitter. Just
You're on
say hello.
Twitter, yeah.
Yeah.
Say hi to Lenika.
At Lenika Cruz.
Lenika, we've worked together about at math 7 years now. It's coming up. It's 6.5.
6.5 years. Yeah.
Okay, well, you got to reveal a Sim secret.
Oh, get out of here!
What do I have?
I'm
to dish on
annoying.
David?
I'm precious and thin-skinned. I don't know. Like, what's a secret to reveal about me?
Lenika, I'm going to do the outro for the show while you think on a Sim secret, and I'll let you close out the episode, but I want it to be a juicy one. Just one Sim secret.
Oh no, you definitely know more Sim secrets than I do. That's the thing.
I don't know about that. Think on this for a minute. Folks, thank you all for listening. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to Joe Bowen and Pat Reynolds for our artwork. The Great American Novel for our theme song. Thank you to Marie Barty for our social media. Thank you to our editing team, Alex Barron and AJ McKeon. Tune in next week, as we said, for Blanky Awards. April will be May after that. If you don't get it, it's a play on words because the director in the month. Go to blankies.reddit.com for some real nerdy shit. Go to our Shopify page for some real nerdy shirts. And you can go to our Patreon Blank Check special features where we're trekking through the Star Trek movies. And as always, Lenika, can you please gift us with one Sims secret?
I don't have a Sim secret. All I can think is I miss David and I want the pandemic to be over so I can come to New York and we can hang out.
David, I ask that you do the echo of the line. You know what it's gonna be.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Consider the coconuts.
Consider its leaves. Wait,
No,
wait. What am I
God.
supposed to do?
You're
I don't
supposed
know
to
what
just
you
say
want me to
consider
do.
the coconuts. Forget it. Forget it.
David, we practiced this so much before we started. Come on.
Wait, I guess no. I'm not echoing. I can't.
I'm not
do
gonna
that.
let you say trunks and the leaves. That's my fucking moment to shine.
Yeah, that's what I was confused by. No, you.
Okay, all right. Listen, let's just take it from the top.